And then I'll just go out there and press start the meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
Right up there. Let's see you. Good to see you. Good to see you in a while. How are we doing? Doing well. Good, good, good. What do you got to tell me? What do you got to tell me? Oh, yes.
Focus on me. If I lift my eyebrows, because I do the camera.
What's up, guys?
Yes, I'm gonna put that tomorrow.
I know it's a lot.
This one was-
So I'm like wondering,
Like Saturday.
Yeah, yeah, my kids do that.
Yeah.
And, I said, "Well, it's not hard."
Well, I'll be playing with it.
And then,
You have it, right?
yeah. Then my two girls, the girls be crying, don't get enjoying it. Oh,
Around the ball. Around the columns. They're looking for. The older the car. Oh, yeah. I know. Right.
It's one of those things that say that to where at least with my friends.
I have like a whole
There's three guys.
timeline thing that I go by, like what I did with park pass.
Yeah.
There's like a countdown and you do it through it.
I did, yeah, I couldn't go much longer. And we had 300 events.
So quick. So quick. That's what it is. That's very silly. Very silly. Sure. He said yes. I do it. Oh, no. Nine. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'll call to order. Let's start with pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice that required under the Open Public Meetings Act was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Coast Star, and New Coaster on 2021. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office, and that a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Mr. Vanel?
Here.
Mr. Gubatose?
Here.
Mr. Webb? Absent. Mr. Sexsmith? Absent. Mayor Fox?
Here. Okay, good evening, everybody. We have a number of topics to address, and some cases complete tonight. We have a workshop discussion tonight, that's on the community center referendum. There are two introductions for ordinances tonight, Fletcher Lake Commission bylaws. 286, we have no ordinances for adoption tonight. So, don't have Mr. Cannon here, but I know I did speak to him a while ago. He's probably on the way. So on grant for the referendum, which language. word language. But I can start the discussion. So, okay, so I'll begin. So I started working on this project in February 2021. It was my second month in office. We shifted the team that was in place for 2020. And the purpose of that was to bring in a combination of engineering and a little bit more technical resources and some of the professionals that I deemed appropriate. We utilized T&M engineering and ultimately DIG architectural later in the year. From late June to September, those two developed a recommended path. They detailed that and then made a proposal in September, late September of 2021, which was passed 5-0 by this council. Business Administrator Humphrey advertised, interviewed, and recruited 5 unbiased resident volunteers to participate at the professional's request. So that program met in late 2021. They had 6 meetings, pretty extensive. Council members rotated attendance to that, and I think attended all but 1 meeting. The business administrator and I did attend those meetings, although we were not there as full participants, just to really answer clarifying questions. From early 2022, deliverables from DIG and T&M. They were provided to the council and the at-large community. We did have some town hall meetings going through some of their findings. So a cost estimate for remediation, engineering, and architectural changes was made to us in May of 2022. And based on the specific instructions to the professionals providing to council, we basically took the 3 architectural designs that they provided us and came in with a hybrid. I would call it probably the lower cost of the 3 items because we took out some items that were probably going to be more extensive in cost. The professionals were made available to us for a question and clarification meeting on June 16th. They brought 6 or 7 other professionals in to answer questions. From that point, we shifted to a survey, something that was brought up in the town hall meetings. Again, we use a professional for that survey person. She received support from a number of the residents who were on the program committee, and also the chair of the BBCA, Paul Gavin. We asked Paula because she had conducted a survey in 2019, I believe, and thought she could provide some insights, which I believe she did to that survey team. Again, I was not really involved in survey development, except to provide requested information, the request came into, could you provide us 4 or 5 projects that the town might be thinking about? So we provided some data, but really didn't participate in the actual formation of the questions. I believe the process will provide insights and really, in a sense, has educated the public. I think it'll give us some really good information. I can tell you that about 36% of the people that have responded to date have provided us very insightful comments and some provocative to really make us think about what we might consider going forward.
I think that we also agree that we would address all the comments that we received.
Correct. We will put that. But about 36% of the people have responded. I think the count that I had a couple hours ago was about 700 and I want to say 730 or 740 people have responded to the survey to date. The last thing is I just want to remind everybody that a year ago tomorrow, July 27, 2021, we workshopped and discussed the referendum. But at the next council meeting, a number of council members felt the cost estimate was essential, so we tabled the referendum idea. So here we are. We do have that cost estimate. The referendum question, from my perspective, like the survey, was handled independently by the borough attorney who just joined us, Greg Cannon. It's my recommendation that we don't change it significantly. Just as the process we've gone through, we've tried to keep thumbs off the scale to make it a fairly objective process. So my view would be not to make a lot of change to that. We painstakingly we've tried to do that, and I think we've achieved that to date. So opening comments on this, the language of the referendum is actually muted. It's basically three statements. The first statement is, should the Borough of Bradley Beach borough own real property and current vacant structure located in Marine Avenue, Lot 41, Lot 1, in order to create a municipal community center, an estimated cost of between X and Y. You have to decide what that is. Statement 2, voting yes means you want the borough to take the necessary steps to renovate the public property and vacant structure 19 Marine Avenue, Lot 41, Lot 1, in order to create a municipal community center at an estimated cost of between X, Y. And then voting no, this is the last statement, means you do not want the borough to take the necessary steps to renovate the public property and vacate the structure located between 19 Marine Avenue, Lot 41, Lot 1, in order to create a municipal community center at an estimated cost between X and Y. So that's the three statements. Referendums tend to be, we try to be pretty simple, pretty clear, which I think these are. It's basically saying the question is, should we? And the question is yes or no. So with that, I'll turn it over to the other council.
I don't have any comments right now.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that summary. I actually, for the most part, agree. I think we should keep it simple. I think the way our attorney has laid it out is as straightforward as you can get. It's like, vote yes for community center if at this cost, or D, vote no for the community center at this cost. It's very generic. And just for the benefit of the public, my first reaction to that generic language was, well, shouldn't there be some wording in here that provides the pros and the cons? Like, you know, pros would be X, the con, and then in the no, the cons would be Y. And perhaps others out there would say the same, whether you think there are pros, you know, if you're in favor of this project, or if there are cons. Either side would probably want the first reaction, some of those enumerated. And as I thought about that, I thought, boy, that really starts to take us out of the world of objective, you know, facts and into, you know, biases on both sides. So the only question I have, I think the wording makes a lot of sense. And the only question I have is, as the mayor identified, there's a language at the very end of that paragraph that says, at a cost between X and Y. And the one thing that just concerns me from the public's perspective, and I'd like to at least test this with the rest of the council, is when you throw out big numbers, whether it's 5 million, or 10 million, or 15 million, I'm not sure most of our residents, everyone knows it's a big number, but most people have asked me at least, well, what does that mean to me? You know, what's the cost to me? And of course, the answer is going to be different based upon the value of your home, or if you even own a home. But I was wondering if the council could consider, for purposes of only pointing out the cost to the voters, if we could translate that, you can work with an engineer or something, translate that to the monthly cost of a bond. If we were to say bond this at X dollars, bond this at, I know Councilman Bonnell has said the number that is probably more appropriate is much different. I don't want to throw out numbers and incite a riot here, because I know there are very strong leaders on both sides. But some have suggested, Councilman Bonnell with a lot of construction expertise, has said, well, we don't need to do all this, it should be a lower number. I know our engineers have given us a good sized number. Most of you have probably heard that number. It's a big, nice round number. But I'm just wondering, can we take a couple of these numbers for the low and high end and just divide them by number of households, by what we would bond over 30 or 40 years, and say it's $20 per household per month, you know, low end and high end, rather than throw out big numbers, 6 million, 10 million, 20 million. I don't know, Mr. Mayor, and Councilman Manella, if you guys have advice one way or the other, but it feels like that would be more meaningful to the public.
Well, I know the survey, financial institutions, KCA and HFA, one's the financial advisors that give us bond and information, relative bonding. They work together to come up with the annual estimates through, I want to say it was through 2034 annually, and then they do the next 10 years just as one lump sum. There was a mean and a median. Median being if you took the 1,900 homes and got to the whatever 1,900 divided by 2 is, that's the number, which I think was 700. I want to say $780,000. The mean, which is the average, was I think it was $811,000, which that ties into our tax rolls and our appreciation taxes. So in the survey, that's what the survey person dropped in, a simple schedule saying that the mean pays this, the median will pay this, and you can do the math from there.
So is Al asking if this could be represented in the actual question on the resolution, or are you asking if this information is available to the public?
I'd like it to be available to the public, but I was asking.
It is on link to the survey, but would you like to have it?
I would, again, I think it makes sense for the public to present it as either a monthly or annual amount, amortized over 30
Right,
or 40 years.
So this is, I actually I haven't reviewed the cost estimates, that's my exact sense. Good job. But so it's expressed as a gross cost, but obviously there's a financing cost, which parameters have been. What you could translate that finance cost, the way you individualize it to any taxpayer is we measure it about tax, the gross levy, the rate. So you could translate that gross cost or the range of gross costs to a tax rate, what the increase on the tax rate would be. And then anyone can take their assessment and individualize them. So that's how you would express it. I think if you're going to put the question, or this which translates to the tax delta of whatever. Right? Just
Yeah.
maximum one.
I want to keep it as simple as possible. Again, somebody standing in that voting booth, they just want to understand as easily as possible what it means to them. And to your point, they're not going to sit. The good news is you're trying to help them understand what it means to them. They're probably not going to calculate it and multiply the tax rate. So my simple thinking was, if we took median or mean, they're both just about $800,000, and if we said for the pick the one, but for the mean house of $800,000, this is a range of $15 to $30 per month, something like that. But it amortizes over 30 years. The idea being somebody who's got a $1.6 million home could double that. You know what I mean? Like they have some relativity, but just to help residents understand what they're voting.
Well, so it's interesting that
Yeah, I mean,
So it's actually difficult to do that because you have your different levies and caps and your values from year to year.
this is the problem I ran into writing this question on like why it's pretty as simple as possible, so it makes sense. I mean, because so it's modeled off of other referendums, which typically, like, so for example, and this is not to criticize the process you guys are going through, because actually I could tell you what other towns I represent that have gone through a very long process to design public projects like this and decided at the end after spending $500 million with an architect that they didn't want to do it, or it was too much money and stuff, or the voters turned out they didn't really want that much and they produced something different. So I think to get the sentiment at the beginning, like again, I'm not being critical of it. Most of the questions that are written in this context, like they're already to cost specifications and like basic bid specifications. And the professional work's been done, and then they essentially put the question out to the public as because it's a significant amount of money, like a project like this. And so most of the time, the governing body has been considering, like, are we going to do this and spend this kind of money. They've actually already spent a lot of money, and the voters were like, what the hell are you doing? And then there's a referendum. So, that's why it's modeled this way, because they usually, the estimated cost isn't XX, it's whatever the cost estimate was, or the 3 bids that were received, the lowest responsible bidder. And they hope to bid or something like that. So that was the difficulty I had writing this. You've obviously gotten to it right off the bat. And I've seen those financing written as annual financing charge to the town of, or things like that, or the tax rate. I haven't seen them pick the mean or the median, because it's mostly that's they just have very specific costs. I've seen it expressed like when you break down the unit of how you allocate the money, allocate for $100.
And maybe the difference is that it might not lie within the resolution, but within the communication through the website. I mean, people should be informed before they go to the booth to vote, right? Like it is the onus should really be on the person who's voting at the booth to look up the information and be ready to make that decision when they get into the booth. So I think that would also put that on us, that we need to have that information out there and make that document clear on our website.
So I do not disagree, the person should, every one of you out there should do your homework in advance. The people in this room probably are the people who will do their homework in advance. But we've got another couple thousand voters, I don't know how many will turn out and actually vote, but even 1,000 voters, I'm afraid most of them will never go to the website, won't even know this question's going to be on the ballot.
So I live in a different municipality in Monmouth County, and we do get referendum questions quite often. And we do get, with our sample ballot, we get the information, and it does direct us to the website to get more information on the project.
And at minimum, we should do that. I'm not this.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I understand, but I also don't want to put into looking at the bigger. On the small end, I absolutely agree with you. I would love to have that number. When I go to get gas in my car, I want to know if I have $30, do I have enough to go to get gas? But in the long run, just so much to tie into that number that I don't want to public.
So I'll give you the example of how I paid it. I'll give you the example I was basing it on. So it said the question in Milltown was, shall the borough of Milltown expend the sum of $6,054,812 for the construction of a new firehouse at 116 South Main Street in accordance with plans prepared by RSC Architects last revised December 21st, 2020. So they tried, because that one is just gross. So that's the one I modeled it after. But I had seen other ones that broke that down with the annual financing cost that we incorporated into this one. I did not see, and I saw one for a fire district that I'll never remember it, where they expressed it as an increase in the fire tax rate. So like it was, shall we buy the fire engine at X cost? This will entail an increase of X in your fire tax for their election.
I just think, again, we're trying to make it as clear as we can for voters. I'm not arguing what number we should use. I'm not saying it's too high, it's too low, it's just right. To rearrange. To me, you're mentioning a lot of variables. To me, it's the assessed value of the borough. We know what that is. But we know the number. We know how many residential properties, so residential properties. That develops a mean or an average, whatever we want to call it, median we can calculate. But let's just take the mean, simple math. The mayor just said it's around 800,000. I think if we said for a mean, assessed value of home of 800,000, the taxes, the municipal taxes would increase X.
What do you agree?
It seems
Yeah,
So,
but it is.
So I want to just cover.
Literally prohibiting you from doing it.
What's that? No, but one thing, so we've had this survey out for Tuesday, so a little over a week and a half. I said, I think the number's like 740 people have participated. One of the biggest numbers that sticks out so far in the survey is that when asked if people understand the financial, that was presented to them in the survey, 93% say that they understood it, and it was well, understood. So that shocked the hell out of me. But I know that the survey person had some painstaking detail because the financial people gave her a pretty big chunk of numbers. And she got down to, we gotta be able to say it in a way that people can look at it and say, I understand.
The way we had it was in math language, and she said, no one's gonna understand this.
So on that note, that's part of the reason I'm hoping we can figure out maybe an improved method of communication. I must fall in the, and I generally think I'm pretty good with numbers, and I must fall in the 7% who have no idea what the survey financials were saying. I had no idea. It was dividing these large costs by 10 years. I mean, which, again, you can pick any period of time you want, but I would have personally allocated over the period we'd be borrowing, which might be 30 years, something like that. So, and and I'm not criticizing the survey, but I'm concerned about elements of it. For example, I love, because surveys should be simple. And anyone who's taken the survey, you saw the smiley faces. If you don't like the idea, I love that. I wish you had designed the entire survey. Because you go from very simple, make a frowny face, don't like this thing, make a smiley face, do like it. You go from that page to data I could barely read, it's so shrunk on a page, and there's so many numbers. And I kind of am a numbers person, I like numbers. I've done my own numbers on this thing many times. It made no sense to me. So again, I know it sounds critical, 93% of people that have responded apparently disagree with me. But I thought, as I read this, I when you get to my comments, you'll see I said, I don't understand these numbers. But if we could, again, consider a way anyway to make it simpler for people standing in the voting booth. I just think that's admirable. I'm not arguing make it lower or higher, just convert it in a way that we've had town hall meetings, I should say, where people have said, people in the audience, I don't know if all of you out there right now, if I ask, and I'm not going to, but if I did ask for a show of hands, what's $10 million mean to you in terms of your taxes? 10 million is the number that everybody says. I've heard people say $60. Everybody asks. At one point, Councilman put numbers in a town hall, and I'm not sanctioning his numbers at all, that he was doing for your amortization. And people in the audience said, what were those numbers again that Councilman Bunnell gave us? That's what we want. So again, I'm not sanctioning Councilman Bunnell's actual numbers, but I'm but I do think bite-sized chunks just make more sense for our population. So if there's a way to transfer.
I think it's probably more difficult to do that because as we all see where the interest rates are going, and what happens is we work with our bond counsel, and at the time that you're ready to bond something, you're determining where am I going to get that better rate? Is it 20, 25, or 30, right? So we don't have that exact answer. So any number that I'm going to give, quite honestly, is just not going to be the best number anyway.
None of these are exact. None of them.
They're not. So why would we go through that
It's just,
process?
honestly, the reason I'm there is it's like, we have to make decisions, if we make multiple policy decisions to come to the number we're talking about. When is this gonna happen?
Yes.
Speculate on what the interest rates are gonna be. What is the best term of the bond? What are the costs of the bond at that time? There's just a lot of different decisions you have to make to arrive at that. I'm not, that wasn't in my purview,
And
that's why
rates-
it's not there.
And rates can just change. We have seen like so much over 30 days that we really truly probably have a great prediction. We have great financial analysis people, but I just don't know if we'd be comfortable putting that in a document that we're offering. Because by the time they get to the poll, this number could be just so different. I don't
10
think it would be
million,
fair.
I'm picking on 10 million because it's a popular number, but that 10
Sure.
million could be so different. Already it may be different from when.
It could be less and it could be more, but you know it's the average. When you're telling somebody how much you're gonna pay for that average, well, that's the variable that I think is different.
Well, again,
Because you know if you go out for a construction bid, right, if you do an engineer estimate of, let's use a $6 million number, it could come in at 5.3, it could come in at a 7.2. You just don't know. I've been in the world where that's actually what happens. And so that rate is just so different, but that's up to you guys. I mean, we can put whatever you like is in there. I think that's more for you guys to discuss things
I don't
regularly.
know if it's possible. I mean,
I don't see the
Honestly-
possibility, but yeah.
to reach the least common denominator on that agreement, make consensus on that, I think it's difficult because of those things. Like, if you start here with the gross cost, I have two numbers there already, right? When you start permutating it out to what the term is going to be, what the interest rate might be, then we're talking about a lot of different denominators. And that's what, to answer your question about why I wrote that simply, is because I just didn't think we could get
And then he's talking about
consensus
operating
on those
costs.
factors. You guys are tonight, I'm moving on when you want, but that,
I
that's
just
why
want-
it's so simple.
I just come from a world where we're always forced to simplify and to take very sophisticated financial data and simplify it for our audience. And the audience typically, I'm not speaking for folks here tonight, but in general, the audience trusts the professionals. And if our engineers say, well, the interest rates we assume would be between, I'm making up numbers, 2.5% and 4.5%, that might, and we would, and if we were to bond, we would bond over 30 years, and we would bond for 10 million, pick numbers. That's easy. I mean, I can do that.
Is the number in the report?
What's that?
Is the number in that report that you have? Like, it's the annual financing cost?
You can calculate it.
Well, the financial analysis that was done has principal and interest payments over a period of time. All the details there, maintenance, staffing, everything. I kind of go back to,
Well, it doesn't detail anything, it just
not just-
references those, it doesn't detail, there's no detail.
What do you mean there's no detail?
In the $14 million number in the survey, there's no detail on the operational costs of
Absolutely.
finance.
That's correct.
It references it, there's no
Correct.
detail.
That's correct. The financial analysis people, Acacia and HFA, together to get those simple numbers.
Council, I'm muted.
That's a whole separate discussion.
I ask for everything all the time,
You
and I never get anything, so.
You didn't answer this.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
what was it?
The HFA.
I can throw it down. Yeah, that's the, yeah.
So I guess where I'm at it on this is, I think we should do, part of what this whole survey was supposed to do, which I think it did, was it created an educational process for people, it informed them, and they responded. Right now, I'm hoping by the end of the week, we're over 800 people. That's a lot of people. If you think about the survey that was done in the church, it was 400 and something people. The strategic plan survey was 400 and some people. And again, the number that shocked me most was 93%, because it's clearly the biggest number on the whole survey in terms of a number. People said, yeah, I understand. So I think educating people between now and November, we continue to do that.
Well, let me say this another way. What would we put on this survey? Fill in Mr. Cannon's numbers.
My recommendation would be between 10 and 10.5.
Well, that seems like a super narrow range for all the variables that, we've got. But it also just, okay, I don't wanna belabor this point, I guess. I just think most folks out there, but if it's 10 or 10.5, it's basically the same number. What's it gonna cost the average person, the mean house, the average house, the mean house, whatever? Monthly basis, annual basis for the next 30 years.
And I think we can provide it to people.
We can.
But I don't think it belongs, my personal opinion is it doesn't belong in the referendum. I think
No, it should have been in the survey, right?
well,
It's pretty simple, I mean, I did an amortization chart, it took about 20 minutes. Al took a look at it, said, yeah. And I brought it, Al's got it here, I brought it to a town hall meeting.
so
And for $10 million over 40 years, it's $20 a household, 3%. It's that simple, it's not complicated. We're trying to make it more
But instead
complicated.
of us,
well, as I said, 93% of the people who took the survey said I get it, I understand.
Oh, maybe they didn't understand what was in the survey, but the survey
So
was not
if I look at.
really accurate.
Well, that's
Because
that's
we're not-
that's just a.
We're not doing a 12-year bond. We're gonna do a 30 or 40-year bond on something.
There's not a 12-year bond in there, it's more than that.
At this point, the
No,
survey,
It was stretched out to 2034
No,
with a start date of
the
sometime next year.
estimated cost was through 2034.
Right.
The total cost extends well beyond that.
let's just
Talking about the startup cost that was in the survey, which was $14 million. All
That's
in.
not a startup cost.
It was all in.
It's not a startup cost, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're right. The startup cost is the 10 million.
Correct.
Okay. And the startup cost, 40-year bond at 3%, which is higher than what the rate is now, is roughly $20 a month per household on average. That was not published. It's a far different number than the $600 a year that was published in the survey that Alice referenced.
I'd like us to focus not on what was wrong with the survey. I think there were elements of the survey that were great, and I do think, I personally questioned other elements of the survey. I thought it got too complicated. I love the smiley faces, but some of the other things were a little more challenging to read. However, what I'd like us to focus on is what makes the most sense for our residents, the people who
In the referendum.
in the referendum who will be sitting in, or standing in a booth voting. And if we tell them 10 million to 10 million 5, I don't know what that means to people.
So
That's
if,
the cost. I'm
if in
saying
the,
that's
but
the
if in
range
the
of
survey, no, and listen, I'm truly neutral in this story, whatever you decide is fine. But if in the survey, if we have 93% of people that say that they understand the financials, why would we go into more specifics when over 70?
Because the
700
financials that
people.
were presented are not accurate to what is actually going to happen. If we
But that's
presented
not
the
true.
A1
No,
assumptions,
that's
we-
for your review, Randy, but this is for the professionals who are, this is what they do for a living. The cost, and I was part of this as well. It used to be like, you might not agree with whatever the mayor says, but this is what we have come to as a whole as professionals, excluding the attorney. And we sat down, we took a look, if this project costs this amount of money, you have your costs, then you have your operating costs. What is that number? And we did work on that number. I was not asked for those numbers by anyone. I would absolutely give the information, but either way, the numbers are the numbers, that's the solid proof. And
So-
we all know, if we go out for a project, we build a building, I have to put in the employees that are gonna work that building, the upkeep of the building, the energy to the building. We have FICA, we have pension costs, we have other costs that come forward. Good, bad, or indifferent, those are just the reality of running a building. And we just took that into everything, it's the whole
But only
big
on-
number.
Only till 2034.
That's not correct.
So why don't we ask?
Well, that's the
professionals-
number till
That's not correct.
2024,
Why don't we ask-
we bonded out to the
I've
30
seen
years.
the analysis.
Hold on,
Yeah.
Mayor, sorry, listen. So we actually took the full value period, we only gave 10-year view. Which isn't gonna change much then in over the 30 years, because the cost is gonna increase. I can't say what your union contract is gonna call for, I can't say what the FICA is gonna be, I can't say what the pension contribution is gonna be, medical benefits. Medical benefits alone this year is over 24% in the next year. So that's where.
But for example, we are arguing in the midst of David.
Oh, please don't, no, I'm not arguing
No,
with you by any
no,
means.
you're totally agreeing. I'm just saying, whatever we're all doing here, I feel like we're going around in circles because for every dollar that you factored in, and I'm sure you and the professionals factored in for operating expenses and for bus and medical, there possibly are dollars out there that could have been operating revenues, there could have been grant funding, there could have been personal.
Well, your revenue has to offset your expenditure, like that's just
Yes, but-
municipal finance.
Right, but no one.
And whether that-
We're talking about operating.
It's everything, it's the survey numbers, the full in numbers to operate the building. So if you wanna just go the 10 million number, which is
Professionals should give us an amortization chart
great.
for
So
30
now you have
years.
to decide very many different factors, but you have tonight to do it.
why don't we ask professionals to give us the amortization chart that I did for 30-year bond on 10 million?
They didn't agree with your numbers.
I'm using your numbers.
No, but like the numbers that you gave us, that like when you gave numbers, but
And
those
the
weren't the
amortization
exact
chart is very, very simple. They should, if you call them tomorrow, they should be able to have it to you in an hour
numbers.
on $10
Everything
million.
you guys want to put in the resolution,
Simple.
I'm good.
Tell them to use 5%.
I just want it to make sense to the voters, that's all I'm asking.
And I guess, again, 93% of the voters said they understood. what was in
And
it.
I'm not taking that away from it. They may have understood what they were given, but if they were given other information, they may have understood that too. We have a lot of smart people in town. Apparently 93% of them.
Anyway, I think.
I'd be more than happy to go over and do whatever it is that you'd like to do. We can have a deadline for the referendum, so if we can't come up with a decision tonight, we probably would be in our best interest. We have time to call a special meeting for the referendum wording.
Well, where's the derivatives of the number that's even presented in the example, right?
We have to use.
My point is, can we agree on X and Y?
I was asking for X and Y being dollars per month or per year. X and Y, the mayor.
Just not express it at a total, as a total cost at all?
Again, I'm not trying to overcomplicate this. If you want to say it's gonna run, well, first of all, 10 to 10.5 seems like a very narrow, I might just pick 10 million, do that, and give one number, but.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to work with the mayor, I'm just, and Larry, I'm not trying to disagree with anything other than, simplicity. I did not like that survey. I am one of 7% who said, I don't know these numbers.
I think it was, yeah, it was.
It was just complicated. Maybe everyone did get, I'm not saying it was wrong.
But all I can tell you is that the survey person took a page full of numbers from the financial people and distilled it down to something simple.
I'm really trying not to criticize it. I'm hoping though, learning from it, we can just make it easier in the referendum.
Well, we want to take the range out and just call the number 10,250.
Do it with an amortization schedule, so that whatever that translates to in 30 years.
I would
everybody knows.
suggest that we provide that to people between now and November, to every household.
So what do you mean, like express it as like, as a finance amount?
Yeah.
So like I can, take it back, it's 8% interest.
Well, it would be.
No,
6% interest? These are the variables that I'm talking about, I'm thinking a little spread less than
It'll be used market rates, I mean, whatever, you get our professionals to tell us.
The financial people that did this.
Well, I mean, you take out a primary mortgage less than 6%.
That's-
3%, 2.5, 3.
It's less than 3%.
Fine, and I don't know what Monmouth County tends to be very.
I would suggest that we educate people further.
Yeah.
You could figure that number, that's what I mean, you have to agree on an interest rate.
Yeah.
But
So isn't, there's a
financial
rate that defines.
right, the financial people did that.
What did they use to use?
I think it was in there with,
Okay, let's do that, let's do.
It's 3.5%. That's great.
It's high, it's conservative, but that's fine,
okay, but they did it. It's done.
let's use what they did.
Let's use that.
I have financial access.
Yeah, I would prefer the financial experts numbers.
Yeah, that's what was in the survey.
I think, well, if they could advertise it over the life of the bond, it's 630.
So again, I gotta be clear about this. The 10-year was just a representation of over a 10-year period. This was what would cost the homeowner. This thing goes well beyond 2034.
What was it, the number like $7,000?
That was the 10 years. So
That would be about 700 a year.
correct.
And every number we come up with amortization schedules is like,
That's
$200 a year.
Well, no,
Yeah.
it
No, I'm just saying, it is.
includes maintenance, it includes staffing, it includes bond costs,
Yeah.
principal payment, all that. That's what's in the financial houses, which you can provide.
No, but I'm trying to be fair, right?
What's unfair about
we have all the costs for maintenance and operations, and we have no cost for rents, for revenue generation. We have no offsetting costs. I mean, it's just, come up with a number that's reasonable.
So this referendum is asking, do you want to renovate this facility at a cost of something?
Okay, so how much are you looking to, if it was a $10 million project, how much are you looking to bond? How much are you putting as your down payment on
We
capital?
have to put 5%.
How?
That's what I-
So what's your number that you're putting down?
I ran,
Definitely
just
not.
for fun, I ran my numbers at 10 million, and if the mayor's right, it's 10.5 that we're covered.
Okay. Then you have to, I mean, then you, the commissioners bring out to $545,000 is cash to take out that bond.
Yeah.
So that's,
A minimum
so
of
that's
$100.
actually a cost on the taxpayer as well. You have to fund that, so you have to include that.
And that's what KCA and HFA did, they worked together to develop that.
I'm trying so hard not to argue about the cost estimates. I want
Oh, yeah.
a simplified delivery of those cost estimates.
The annual debt service charge to the town?
Just the debt
Divided by the
service, not
resident,
the
by the-
cost.
yeah, by the-
Well, there's no way to define it by residents. You have
by
to,
households.
we have, I mean, the way that the town expresses individualized charges is a tax rate. But that's the standard, right?
But we come up with a mean average assessed value of a house, $800,000. You can calculate what the 10 million borrowing is. You know, what percentage that applies to an $800,000 house. It is pretty straightforward. Isn't it?
But when you walk into the place and you own a $450,000 house, and you look at it, what do you do?
Yeah, no,
You have to do the
well, my
calculation,
house
right?
is half that.
Or if you walk in there and you have a $1.5 million house,
My house
then
is
you have
close
to do math, right? So there's no way to not do math, which is why the town expresses it in terms of a tax rate.
If you
So
look
you can
at,
take the annual debt service charge to the town, and you can express that
Right.
as a tax rate of the current valuation, and you could express that in the question. But you have to put my point to you, Alice,
Yeah.
that you're gonna have a lot of qualifiers in there. Annual debt service charge to the town, tax rate to the mean property owner at today's current valuation, right? Because it's 30
I
years.
wouldn't
so-
say tax rate, I would just say dollars, just dollars. Because we're gonna
Well, your
bond,
dollars
So in
are,
order to express the amount of money $800,000 house is going to have to pay, you're gonna have to take the annual debt service charge, divide it by the valuation, the current value, you have to pick a valuation, current valuation, change that 30 years from now.
me.
And then you're gonna get a tax rate, and you're gonna apply that to the 800,000, that's how you get.
Yeah, but the change, okay. The
and that's
change
only
doesn't
this
matter.
current year, it's gonna
Once you
change
lock
in
into a
23.
bond amount and a fixed payment of debt service
Yeah.
every year, the valuation doesn't matter. I mean, every.
That's not true.
Yes, it is, because right now we assume that as our assessments go up, our tax rate goes down. I'm just saying the fixed amount is going to be the same, even if everybody's assessed values go way up, double, triple. And hopefully they do for everybody. You all sell your homes one day, make millions of dollars.
Okay, so I'll give you an
So
example that
the fixed
proves
amount.
what. Let's say you're trying to divide $1 million and tell a person in the town who owns an $800,000 house, how much money they're gonna pay. How are you gonna figure that out? You have to
No,
know
you
the tax
take
rate,
your tax
right?
rate. Oh, yes, right. But then you figure it and you get this, and I'm making this up, it's $10 a month. I'm making it up. That's $10 a month for $1 million homes. And you, by the way, you're locked into $10 a month, the town is the borough. Now, that $10 a month, 30 years from now, that home might be triple now. Well, and I don't know what the rest of our taxes would do, but assuming every time the appreciation hits the house, we reduce the tax rate, which we've pretty consistently done. It's still $10 a month, no matter how you slice it, it's $10 a month for the next 30 years.
For that $800,000
No, the house is
household, it's
very
not,
obviously, but it's,
indisputably not. That's my point, unless you say current value, that's what I'm talking about qualifiers, right? You have to say based on the current valuation.
yeah, yes,
Right.
I agree.
I'm just saying that my point to you is only that the decision tree I put down for is like 5 qualifiers deep on the
Okay.
question, which is why it's not there. And I don't know how you guys want me to get there. I'm more than welcome to take whatever number you want out of wherever, but you have to include for the public how you got there. And that, on my point to you only was that always goes through the tax rate, no matter how.
Why don't we, Simple recommendation. It is really easy to calculate the amortization table. 3% interest assumption, 3.5. Not me, our professionals. I'm trying to outsource it.
So I mean, the above that, right? So I just laid out the level of the tree to get to the 8,000%. You got a different number of ways to stop. You can stop a tax rate, right? And you only have one qualifier, which is current valuation. Or you go above current valuation, which is just annual debt service charge to the town, which you could, and assuming a 3.5% interest rate on bonds. And then you only have one qualifier, you know what I mean? Like you can trim it down, but you have, there's no way to come from the bottom. Like every level has multiple qualifiers to get there.
Why don't you say debt service to the town, then people see $300,000 instead of 10 million. Well, and I'm making that up too, but it's a big number.
I mean, if you want to solve a toaster oven, we could do that. But I don't know how you want me to express it in like it's total cost.
It's very easily done. Apparently, I cannot communicate that or Councilman Vanelli. But if we can't agree on an easier way to represent it, then look, the most important thing is the residents should be voting on this. If we go with the mayor's $10 million, you know, whatever, let's agree on a number or a range of numbers. At this point, I was trying to make it easier for our voters. If I cannot get people to agree on making things easy, because we have, you know, too many variables that we won't face to make it something, then let's just plug in 10 million, which itself is a guess.
It's an estimate. It's not a guess. An estimate is developed by an engineering firm and an architectural restoration.
You know what the industry term for that is? A guesstimate.
Well, my term for it is an estimate.
And Larry, even the professionals said it's 6.5 million, but all these other variables, let's make it.
Absolutely, but an estimate is not an exact number. All I'm saying is that I think we're trying to discount or minimize the amount of work the professionals did to derive an accurate number.
Not at all. I was asking in the beginning, I'm still asking now. Take the work the professionals did, don't discount one iota. Simply ask them to translate it into a bond at prevailing rates. What would the debt service be? We would lock into a bond. Now granted, rate could change tomorrow, but just to give people a sense. Put it at 3%, 3.5%, whatever, and it comes out to a number. It's $24.50. I don't know, monthly, $240 a year, whatever. But I just think that makes more sense to the voter than to say $10 million. I don't know.
Again, I think we can provide that to every household between now and November with frequently asked questions. We can say if people want their house particularly estimated, we can provide that. If somebody in the audience says, my house is valued at X amount, what does this mean to me? I think we can provide that. I think we could, Kim, can we develop a table?
Well, that's actually what the attorney and I.
If you look at our, if you look at our,
It's annual.
well, yeah, so if you look at our current budget and
We
what
can say that there's like a commentary that is, you know, based on the house value of,
I was just trying to clarify
So,
that.
yeah, we're trying to break it down and not misrepresent.
Right,
or-
So if you look at our current tax bill that's gonna go out, look at our budget has a one-page document that shows values from $100,000 to $2 million. And it says my local tax on that number is this, and my total tax is this. I don't see why we can't develop a one-pager that and provide that to people. We do it for our budget every year.
We can do it, absolutely.
And to me, that would be a good educational process for the voter.
Very good education process, I agree with this. My only issue was, can we communicate more simply to the, when they're in the booth?
This would tell me no,
What?
but maybe we can. Like this is actually telling me no, because there's so many different qualifiers and there's so many
I was
different.
just trying to figure out how you work that out.
But maybe there's some kind of wording that we could, like I just said, but that's assuming, right?
I
Or
think
we're
if
still
we-
assuming.
If we just want to, again, if the mayor's okay with this, the councilman is okay with this, you know, I've exhausted, I can't, you know, I'm just not repeating myself, I apologize for it. Greg and Kim, I would, for one, be comfortable if we just use this nice round, I don't necessarily agree with it, but to get a number on the referendum, the only thing we can agree is a big number, and not a amortized, debt service number. $10 million is round, it could be 10,250,000, but I'm okay with 10 million if that just gets us all.
I'm fine with 10 even.
Just nice round number.
Yes.
10 even.
10 even. Okay, so
Right?
No, I'm sorry, let's try to figure out, what did
You don't need a range anymore, we just say an estimated cost of 10 million.
Okay.
okay.
And we will, Mr. Mayor, I know that we will make that commitment with the VA, that we will do everything in our power to educate.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, absolutely.
We can do,
Yeah. No, we could do is, I would say, take our budget sheet that shows house values, local tax, total tax, and just take that kind of format and provide it to our,
I mean, I have a budget sheet that shows like every, like what it costs for every penny for the tax dollar, every like median value to like,
Yep.
$40,000 what it equals to the taxpayer. We can do the same thing by the average.
I implore us, our professionals, to keep it simple, as long as they can. Keep it simple.
Can I try to read the question out loud, just make sure we're all on the same page? Okay. Well, I just-
Well, no, we read it. I read it, but, I mean, you just.
Should we just read that where else?
I read it before you came, I'm sorry.
Well,
No, no problem.
I read it all through.
Why,
or it should be. Can we start with the should?
yeah, should the Borough of Bradley Beach renovate its borough-owned real property and currently vacant structure located at 319 Marine Avenue, Block 41, Lot 1, in order to create a municipal community center at an estimated cost of $10 million? And then just repeat itself.
Repeat yourself, yes, yeah.
Okay, all right, let's send this to Eric.
Would we like to close the workshop?
Motion to close the workshop. Oh, do it, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, should we ask the public comment?
No, what's that? Yeah, yeah, we'll.
Truthfully, no.
Throw back, maybe about 10 minutes on people kind of want to, yeah, so maybe it's, yeah.
Terence Wright, 406 Madison. Conclusion of nearly an hour of rhetoric, I conclude that this town must have a lot of money. Must be a lot of people in town who are millionaires. Councilman Gubitosi keeps harping on the length of the bond, how much the bond, the tax, the rate of the bond. He wants to keep it simple. What's simple is the survey, which was an excellent survey. 93% agreed and knew what it was about. If you've got an $800,000 home, it's $700 a year tax increase. So if you've got $1,600,000, you've got $1,600,000, it's $1,400 a year. That right there should stop any discussion of a referendum or the survey. It should be no. I don't want to pay $700 a year, and my home's estimated more than it's obviously close to $1,000 tax increase. It's an absolute ridiculous.
That's an incorrect number.
Yeah, because you want to spread it over 40 years and make it $20 a month. It doesn't come out that way.
That's how you bond, Ken.
I know, don't lecture me on bonding. I'll run rings around your math, and you are supposed to be a CPA, which I don't even buy that.
Okay, let's just.
Anyway, my point is this, you can throw numbers around all night long, and these people, the little minions here, can give their opinions later. I've got the floor right now. These numbers are ridiculous. If you don't understand that survey, then you shouldn't even vote on the referendum. When you go in, you better have your numbers right and have your opinions right. You don't want to say, oh, what's this about? Should I vote yes or no? I've done my homework, I've been to the meetings, I've heard the numbers, and the professionals have come out with the right numbers. It's a big increase for the community center that probably 80%, I would say, out of the 100 survey don't want to do it. But we're going to sit here and just keep trying to play with words and mess around with the numbers. I know what the numbers are. I am very good at math. Thank you very much. You don't have to tell me about bonding. Mr. Burnell told me at the meeting months ago, there's going to be $6, $8, $10 million job. And now you're worried about it going 10 to something. You should be happy with the 10 because it's probably going to be more like 14 or 15. And when you start adding in the extra expense of running the building, heating the building, managing the building, landscaping, you're going to come out at a loss. It's not going to be any revenue to offset that. It's going to be a loss. So I think if anyone here knows anything about numbers, it should be no right now. Thank you.
Yes.
Nancy Miller, support condos. The purpose of the survey is not to educate, it is to gather information. So already I take issue with what has been said here this evening. In addition, the survey is not closed to give out data that has already been obtained, already skews, and in my opinion, makes the survey invalid. I think you're rushing into this, you just want to have a November ballot. Project of this size should not be rushed. And what I care more about than the money issues that went back and forth, because whenever there's zeros, that just space out, is the scope of the project. And the word renovate has lots of different interpretations. We have gone from redrawings to merged into one drawing to many people have said, we don't even want this. We want to keep the floor the way it is. We don't want to lose our status. We want to do the minimum so it can just be safe and we can use it. And yet, once again, that's ignored. There's a difference between the taxpayers, the numbers of them, and voters that are here in November, let alone voters that show up. So really, you're excluding quite the majority of our population and the people that will pay for this. And that does come down to, gee, if the notification of the survey on the website homepage did not appear until maybe 5-7 days after the survey went out. That certainly was not very respectful of the people who wanted to vote. I have a postcard that tells me it included options. It included options of projects, not options for this particular project. And then too, posted on the website, it says, and I'm quoting, the mayor Ingolstadt and the current borough council members, if the church was purchased in 2020 by them, I do not believe that you own the church. I believe that it is the people that own this property. So why would I, even you said it was a matter of trust and trust of professionals, there is zero trust for me. Thank you for your time. How many seconds do I have left?
You carry them over to the end.
How stupid do you think I am?
Not gonna say 220 North Avenue, Brighton Beach. Just a couple quick questions. Number one, you put the survey out last week, right? Or about that day. Okay. Who looks at that survey? Just mayor council or?
No,
I haven't seen it.
No, actually,
So who's in charge of it?
So,
The Tanner?
no, I've seen,
Oh, no, there's no, we don't
No,
have
so
access
you're
to the,
basically, okay, you're just getting numbers.
we don't have access, I only can get the statistics that are available.
Okay.
so I asked that question today of the survey person and said, okay, July 31st is next Monday. Could you give me a schedule of when you do your analysis and what you're going to present to the public? So she owes me that answer. The first thing she has to do, she did tell me this a week ago, is she basically will take this chunk of data, download it, and then just look at the data, just assess the data.
Is there a cutoff date for the survey?
Next Monday.
Next Monday. That's it.
31st.
So just say with the survey and people say, we don't want it. That means you guys drop it, sell it. How's that work? Or you still on the referendum, if you decide to put it on when we vote, for the election, what's your cutoff date that you can't put that onto the voting box?
Okay, in other words, you want to know what's the cutoff date in order to get on the ballot.
It's
August, I have to have that to the county no later than August 19th.
But
They
you'll
will
know
refer
in
it as
about
soon
a
as
week or
possible.
so that whether this project might go on or not, because we can sit
I
here and
hope
listen to
that by
everybody
next
for a couple
Friday,
hours.
I hope by next Friday she's got it together. I can't, she hasn't responded to me, so I don't know yesterday.
No, so I just think that we're going through a whole lot of, commotion here, and this thing might get shut down, because I know a lot of people in town, and they're not happy about it, you know what I mean? So whether it costs $1 million or $5 million, we keep talking about spending money, well, you know what, fix the damn sewers, that's what we need, we can spend $10 million. I mean, the church, it's there, it's existing, people have different feelings on it, and I have no problem with that, on their feelings, but I think that the survey should tell right away that we should have this on the ballot. Because if we don't, then I think we should drop it and take the next steps in what direction that we want to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Shauna, do you have 414 Monmouth Avenue? I actually think the survey was very skewed. I had trouble answering. I think the survey was skewed. Skewed, and I had some trouble answering some elements of the survey. So when asked to rank the various projects, including this project, I think we were comparing apples to oranges, because what were listed were some sewer utility elements and some beach utility elements, which were separate from some of the projects that we might choose to do. Some were maintenance. Maintenance is different than what we're looking to do with this church. So I think that, that was one thing, because what it was doing was basically laying out all of the things that the borough needs to do. And so the interpretation might be, how can we take this on? So in that sense, I think the survey was skewed in that one respect. I also had some questions on who is evaluating the survey, and will the results of the survey be provided to the public?
Yeah.
Will the results of the one opportunity to make comments for someone to actually express how they feel, will all of that in its totality be
It'll be
provided to the residents?
And there's another statistic, of the 700 whatever it is people, about 36% took the time to comment, which I thought was very good. And there's
Please know that these projects that were mentioned, this was actually more of input that we just wanted from the public to see what projects, so we know going forward how they rate. The funding source is not the mechanism. for that
I
part of
don't
the
think it was
survey.
fair
And I
to
understand,
list it
and I
that way,
respect what
honestly.
you're saying.
Because I truly feel that, and I know this conversation is taking up the 5 minutes I'm allotted to, but I appreciate your response, but I truly feel that it's just not fair to make that comparison, because there are some maintenance issues that we must deal with within the borough. It's not really a question, do we, deal with some of these beachfront issues that we have to deal with, the sinkhole, and some other elements, or the sewer. I mean, these are things that we have to do.
Prospectively, I, feel as though any capital funding project is the responsibility. I want to hear from the public, and that's my job.
Okay, well, I do think that relative to the church, about the church, that this skewed the survey, because it fed fodder to all of the people who feel that we're not in a position to take on such an expenditure. So then the other concern that I had in the survey was the question was associating the $10 million figure to it. Because that $10 million estimate, guesstimate, whatever you want to call it, is really based on what was called a blue sky perspective of how to renovate this building.
Who said it was a blue sky?
I believe that if you look at all of the proposals, all of the details and the drawings, there are some things that perhaps we don't need to do. There's a scaled back version of this.
Professionals said this was a blue sky?
yes.
That's what, well, there were no other options. There were no other options. When I go to build a home, I consider the amount of money that I have to spend and the amount of money that I choose to spend. And so I pare back on certain things. I make choices. And I think there's an opportunity to do that with this church. So when asked the question, am I in favor of renovating this church? Of course, in that question includes at a cost of $10 million, my answer might be no. Am I in favor of restoring this church? I very strongly am in favor of it. I think it's really an important historical landmark in this borough, and it would speak volumes to how we recognize the importance of history as a borough. So I think that $10 million figure is going to kill the project. And number one, how can we make a decision based on a survey when the survey went out not only to taxpayers and voters, but also to people who are not voting, people who are paying rent within the borough. So
People who pay rent vote.
people who pay,
Rent vote.
right, renters vote.
Right.
But
The
people,
referendum is not the actual question, the survey is just for us to get information.
the survey is for us to get information. We cannot, as far as I'm concerned, my perspective on a skewed survey, come up with a decision to kill the project based on the survey. So, because I think some of those things are misleading, and I just want to jump in. Thank you. So a couple of recommendations on the actual referendum. So I'm really confused in terms of the numbers, the annual cost to a taxpayer at $800,000, the disparity between what the BA is saying and what the council is saying. So I think we really need those numbers. I think it's very important. Those kinds of numbers, real numbers, are provided when you make decisions on things. And I think those kinds of numbers have come up with other large expenditures to give an estimate. And yes, based on an $800,000 home with a general idea range of where, you can even give a low range and a high range of where the rates might be, to give it. And I guess my other question is, if there's a referendum question, is there an interpretive statement that's a part of it, like some of those other questions that we get on the ballot? Is there an opportunity to put in an interpretive statement what it all may mean? And the fact that this doesn't even include grants, it doesn't include donations. We
don't have any awards, so you're not able to take that into consideration at the moment.
At the moment, but down the road, we may
So what
find,
grants are them?
I'm sorry,
What grants? Tell me.
I'm guessing that there are grant opportunities out there.
There are, but they vary. You can get a grant for $100, $10,000.
Right, and I know that, but the possibility, I think it's important to mention that there may be grants available. I think that's very important, because when somebody sees a $10 million figure, they have absolutely no idea that there are some ways to mitigate that figure. And I think that's really important information for people to know. And I might suggest that if there's an opportunity for an interpretive statement, don't have everyone struggling on the borough website, which is convoluted. I apologize to say that, but it's not easy to navigate your way around. It wasn't easy before, it's still not easy. I would highly suggest some meetings within the borough to have some of those discussions, not just an FAQ, but a real meeting so people can really understand and get information. But I do believe that if you put this referendum, $10 million, I think it's not going to pass.
Okay, thank you.
And that would be really unfortunate for us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Thomas J. Colan, 612 Third Avenue. I do agree with former Councilman Delaso's, honestly. It's just, this survey has been a mess. Let's just have the referendum. We have over 2,000 registered voters. They vote on the school budget, they vote on the budget. Let's just get it done. And I appreciate you working together to choose the number. I would like to say not to exceed 10 minutes. That would be my wording, but I'm happy that you all came to an agreement on that. I do feel, Mayor, with you spewing these numbers, from the survey, it appears to me that your thumb is all over the scale. I mean, you're using these numbers here that no other person, no other councilman has access to. I mean, you are tilting the scale, it's obviously. And as we were told, the professionals were doing the survey. I'm as upset about the numbers. I mean, to have Main Street in there, I paid for Main Street in 1997. I should get a 40-year lifespan out of that. So throw these numbers, you may have wanted the information, but it scares the public. And it's really simply not fair. So, you said to the newspaper, you're looking for 1,000, you're hoping to get 1,000 people. Now today you said 800. I mean, let's just have it on the vote, and we'll have over 2,000 people vote. But it's worth it, and I think that the comments tonight have been amazing about just renovating the structure. And blue sky was mentioned by the people on the committee. They were told, think blue sky, and that's what they did, and that's why the number's so high.
I'll address that.
Please.
Are you done?
No, I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
There are grants. There was a $250,000 grant that I sent to the grant writer at your office, and there was no
We didn't
submission.
qualify.
You didn't,
No, we didn't qualify.
because you didn't have a plan, right?
Well, there's only certain things you qualify, and for certain things, we can talk about.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm finished.
Okay, so there's only certain grants that we do qualify for. We don't qualify for many of the grants that are out there right now. And that's just the bottom line. I would love to qualify for grants. It's not actually considered a historic building. It's not on the historic building listings for the state. It's not listed on the historic listings for the state. So we cannot even get a historic preservation grant at this time.
But there's other grants, public assembly building grants. There's absolutely CBGB grants. You just.
CDBG is absolutely not acceptable for this
Okay.
because it's not an open space at this time.
Mhm.
If we wanted to maybe do an ADA access, that's a grant that maybe I can maybe max it out at 180 or 200,000, but it doesn't qualify at this time. So the problem is it doesn't qualify at this time because it's not an open building. A lot of grants that you have to go for have to be an open, safe building, and that's not where it is at this point.
Obviously, I agree with that.
So what was the other thing that you had brought up?
Oh, the blue sky.
So what happened was when, I don't know how many people have done capital projects. When you sit down with an architect or an engineer at the beginning of a project, you give them the wants and your needs. They come up with your blue sky. This is what you want, and this is what you get. That is where you begin the process of then bringing it down to the level of what do we need to operate for the things that we want. So when you start at that blue sky, we've done the same thing. I said with the DPW superintendent as well. We said for the DPW building, and Pat Allen, Diageo is also involved with the meeting. We said, what do you guys want? And they came up with the different wants and the different needs. And then you come up with the project and you look at the numbers and you look at the space that you need and it doesn't work. So then you bring it down. And that's over that 2-month process, that's what happened with the committee.
The number didn't go down.
It did. No, it did. It
Okay.
did actually.
And just for the record, a lot of people are complaining on my Facebook page that the owl is not picking up the council or the mayor. So, clarify that for the next part of the meeting.
Why is the thing?
Thank you.
It means it's working.
You're right, it's working.
It's what?
It's working.
No.
Okay. Yes.
Very quickly, Anthony the mayor from Lake Terrace. With the numbers, just to run it out to you, I should have done this before, so forgive me. The number was $10 million, correct?
Renovation. Close enough.
To renovate the building, $10 million.
Right.
And the mayor was kind enough to provide us with the number of households. And that was 1941, according to my memory.
1930.
1930, okay, well, off by 10. So what I did, Mr. Mayor and Council, is I divided the 10 million by the 1941, and I got $5,100 per household. This church renovation is going to cost each household $5,000. I just did the math on my phone. I had to turn my phone off because my wife was texting me about the Yankee game. But in addition to that cost of $5,000 per household, what's fascinating is we're gonna lose $250,000 in additional revenues where we just flip the property and get the income from tax revenue. And we would lose $2 million if we flip the property and the borough gained the $2 million profit because we paid $1.2 million or roughly $1 million. And we would probably, it's estimated that that property is worth $3 million. So all I'm just saying is, I don't want to pay $5,000 more over the next 10 years in taxes. Just it.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna close and go back to the regular meeting. Okay, I don't sitting there raising their hands.
No, they're all right. That way is not out. Just so you know.
Okay, numbers, on the agenda, number 6, presentation of bids, there are none. Number 7, approval of minutes. I'll take a motion to July 8th, 2020 budget amendment special meeting.
He told me he was not coming.
Right, for this one. This year or?
We're going there. Oh, you got that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Please let the record reflect, Councilman Weber arrived at 7:50.
Yep. Okay, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the July 2022 budget amendment special meeting. Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith, absent. Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Make a motion to approve the July 12th, 2022 budget adoption, public hearing, and council business meeting.
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith, absent. Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Make a motion to approve the July 12th, 2022 first executive session at 6:44 p.m. Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith, absent. Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Make a motion to approve the July 12th, 2022 second executive session at 9:05 p.m.
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith, absent. Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, we'll now move to agenda item 8, public comments, questions, private level and single instance speak for participant. And I don't think there's any public emails. That's questions on the agenda. For comments. Yes.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. I would like to address resolution 2022-202. It's actually not worded correctly, I don't believe, Mr. Cannon, because the documents were actually released by Judge Thornton on April 5th as part of the other case. And so I believe it should really be worded a little bit differently. It should say this case. It shouldn't say the case. But for the record, there it is. Whereas the borough was aptly represented by Eric Bernstein and Associates and denied all liability for all allegations and claims made in this action. We still have the other action, which is based on these documents. So I believe it should say this action.
The action is defined above. As the document number 9.
Okay.
So to beat you with the other action yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I wish you luck with that.
Thank you.
Because these documents only confirm, the reason I filed this was because I received redacted documents like this. This is what you get. But the documents should really look more like this. It's nice that the public now knows that the property at 705 Evergreen was considered in closed session for 26 apartments, and there was an improper notice given on the agenda that said it was attorney-client privilege, when it wasn't attorney-client privilege. You don't do attorney-client privilege and meet with a third party who's a developer. So it's very disturbing to me that the public didn't get to know that. And I do have copies of the documents if anybody in the public would like to see them. I think they would be very eye-opening. I do want to thank the council for setting up the resolution tonight for the placement of the non-binding referendum. I think it's very important for this whole public to get past that. We need to just move on from this. If the public says yes, they say yes. If they say no, they say no. It's fair. Everyone knows November 8th, you're gonna vote, they're gonna go vote. We get it. I was just wondering about this, the resolution authorizing the QPA to advertise for bids for sanitation and recycling. What's the basis for that? That would be resolution 2022-201.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you have anything else that you want to speak about, so I don't take your time?
No, that's good. I have about 2.5 minutes left. Go ahead.
Okay, so, in discussions with the department heads and the foreman of the sanitation department, there's a possibility that the discretion for those department heads and foremen respectively might, be changed. In that case, and we believe that the ordinance might not totally cover everything that might come up when it comes to scheduling. And we feel as though maybe at this time, it's in the best interest of the borough to go out for an RFP or bid process to see what the cost would be to have a company take care of the services for the borough.
And was that workshop with the public or the?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, so this is just information gathering, we find out tonight.
Correct. And then,
Okay.
yes, and then we'll have to bid, there will be, known what the cost is if a vendor comes back. And then it will be up to the mayor and council to then decide if they would like to create an appropriation for that.
And now that we have our own punch cards and everything else, time cards, can we establish what our cost is now? I mean, that was always a
As
problem in
what?
the past.
Your cost for what?
What's our cost now to do it in-house versus, having private?
Well, that's a part of the audit process that I started at the end of 2021. The borough prior, they did not go by the flexible chart of accounts in the state budget. So sanitation was not broken out. We're in the process of auditing that department with the payroll, the cost of tipping fees, and the trucks, truck maintenance, fuel, gasoline, and such. So yes.
Those are all
And that should
numbers.
always be accessible. to the
Those are
borough
numbers
and the public.
we couldn't get under the English administration. They couldn't
I
tell
can't
us what
speak
the.
for prior
Yeah, I know you
administration, I
can't.
can just come in and just do what I do.
I know, I understand. Thank you very much.
I've reached Destin, 600 Third Avenue. I've got two items. I'll state the two in case the answers are going to be longer than my time. First question would be on 2022-199. There's a $127,000 change order for the sewer project. I'd like an explanation as to why. Secondly, on 200, I urge that you spend this additional $209,000 on the church until after the referendum. Those are my two.
Would you like me to talk
Yeah,
about
on
change
the,
orders?
second year, I want to make sure I'm specific, specific answer on this, yeah. So, the company that, so on the question of the $27,000. So the company that's doing, the sewer work, MSP, came across an issue, that, there needed to be more, work done around laterals on Second Avenue. I think that's right, Second Avenue. Well, why don't you repeat?
Right, so it seemed, I wasn't here for the beginning phases of the project, so I wasn't too familiar how things were compiled and put together for the project.
Excuse me, this is.
Sewer, sanitary
this is
sewer, question one.
This is the second section. Heard it.
Correct, it's phase
Phase
two
two.
sanitary
Yeah.
sewer. The project was phased out prior to my coming. I had not reviewed the actual specs, and the specs that I did review didn't really go into the pipeline of the project. The the award was given to the project as it was spec'd out. When the work began, we found that what happened was on a certain street, the main ends. What I would probably have preferred was to video the lines or do some type of a program where you GIS the lines to know where exactly what ends and where it begins. The main ends. When that main ends, the laterals, so the laterals are the pipes that go from your toilet to the main, right? So that lateral goes from the properties or the residences past the one entire street underneath the triangle of the borough property and across to the other main on the other side of the street. Per your borough ordinance, the resident or the homeowner is responsible for the lateral. So if we look forward, if there's a problem with the lateral, that burden would be put on the homeowner that lives in that area. That's not fair to do when you're doing a project like this. So it's in the best interest, I believe, for the resident and the borough to extend the main so that way the lateral can connect in a closer area so that if there's ever problems in the future, the homeowner's not paying for 300 feet of video and then repair.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand why that's something that couldn't have been seen before the price was given by the contractor to do the job. My opinion. And the other question I had was, actually, it was just a suggestion. To put off the spending of $209,000 for the church. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terence Wright, 406 Madison. On 2022-204, it states a resolution authorizing the placement of a non-binding referendum. Am I reading that if the referendum is voted up or down, it's non-binding, council will go against that referendum, or does it mean something different?
No, it means with a play meeting, that's correct.
So the second question is, why isn't it binding?
Also, because municipalities are only authorized to put up binding questions to the public in certain circumstances.
This is
This is not one of them.
okay, thank you.
Yes. Mr. Wright, just to an example of an instance with the referendum can be binding is the LoSAP referendum you guys all voted on here last year. So the statute authorizes the borough to put up that question to the public or to create the program.
Thank you.
Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park Condos. Regarding the resolution 2022-199, I just want the record to show that we always get change orders when some contractor didn't include something. Perhaps those people who always get the change orders are not the lowest responsible bidder. Responsible is the word that is most important, and I say that as a former government contractor. I want to discuss the resolution 2022-201. I'll just call it sanitation gate, to be simple. And I see we have some representatives here from DPW. And I will go on record as saying I did not want it privatized. I felt it would cost us too much. I have no idea what the figures are, but I will say I am glad it's privatized because I find that this department actually picks up the garbage. It's a big step forward. However, this year with Recyclegate, of which we were promised would take only 4 weeks, answers in February, which I'm still waiting for. But then we also have Bulkgate and Brushgate. I would like to see included in your RFQ, because this is big, this is quality of life. You don't know what I'm going to say, maybe you do. I find it unacceptable that from May 12th to July 14th, you couldn't have bulk pickup. Like, really, are people supposed to wait 2 months? This is not a third world country. It is mind-boggling that in a community where we do mostly grow our population, then people come down to open their house and bulk is not picked up. And now let's go with brush, which I just learned about last week. So I'm a city girl, I like cement, I'm not into shrubbery. From 6:13 to 9:12, it's not picked up. Really? When does it grow in North America, if not during the summer? And I understand it's a matter of personnel and trucks and parking. There needs to be something other than not getting services for 3 months. Personally, this whole bit with the stickers, and then I gotta go with the person with my sticker to prove that this doesn't work. I don't have solutions, but I have said before, we need to consider having contractors register with this borough if they wanna do business in the borough. Right there, you're getting a little piece of change. I don't know, you don't wanna stripe the streets, the parking, the whole bit, maybe you need a designated area where we all put the brush and once a month we come and get it. Now that we don't get plastic bags in Food Town, maybe we wanna revisit the plastic film thing, I know it's important, but it does seem to be, a cost thing. But something needs to be done about, again, sanitation gate, whatever we wanna call it. I don't know how anyone else navigates this, but I do know that I have a new lawn care person and I'm just like, I don't know, you don't just cut in 6/12 and then not cut again, your shrubbery. You could cut it every week to really keep monitoring. So, whatever this all comes into and your RFQ, I would prefer it not be based on the current services. Prior to sending that out, I think you need to figure out the rest of it, because it's not just about tipping fees. It's about the labor involved. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, good.
Ship 110 Fifth Avenue. In reference to 2022 200 resolution, 319 Lorraine Avenue. I don't think that this should be voted on tonight because Councilman Weber, last council meeting, stated comments on this project as well as voted for it. So, Mr. Cannon, I believe that this should be taken away for that simple fact, conflict of interest, and he voted and he even stated comments. And if I'm not mistaken, he was told that anything referencing 319 Lorraine Avenue, he should recuse himself on.
I don't think Mr. Weber plans to vote on this resolution today, correct?
But he voted on it last time.
Routine maintenance.
He came up, he stated his comments, and then he voted for it.
If that's your position, you're welcome to challenge the governmental action, anyone else, but I mean, I advise Mr. Weber not to vote on this one tonight.
I think that should be removed.
Okay. Well, I respect your opinion, it's always good. I'm not gonna remove it from the agenda, so that's how I think to do that.
Okay. It's up to them. Is that what you're saying? It's up to the council?
I just don't think it's a legal reason to unilaterally just remove it from the agenda.
Even though there's a conflict of interest?
Well, the conflict of interest only makes something subject to challenge, right? So you raise your objection here, government's going to either act or not act, and then if you challenge after that, in 45 days or not, when the rule was not, so this other action. And that's the legal procedure. It's not my place to just, go stop everything, press pause. I'm here to render the opinion, and if your objection is noted, and you can challenge.
Not challenging.
Only the borough attorney, not the judge. One day maybe. Mr. Cohen should agree, I bet.
On the sewer.
No.
On the sewer, what are we doing as far as Second Avenue on the 100, 200 block of Second Avenue on the north side? Are they going to get a, why not? Shouldn't they be entitled to it?
What do you mean? I'm sorry, I didn't get your question. I nodded my head because I got, somebody else asked me this question. It may not be the same question. I'm sorry.
Well, in reference
Finish
to
your question.
in reference to the sewer main.
Right.
Is there gonna be a sewer main that's gonna be placed on the north side of Second Avenue to service those people on the 1 and 200 block? Because right now, they have to go at least 100 and what, something feet?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir,
It's not
that's a
clear.
change order.
That's
That
the
is-
change. order.
That is the
Yeah, I'm
change
sorry.
order.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I thought
That's
you,
the
when you
change
said
order.
north, there was a question
Yeah.
on the north side of town that I got to that, so I thought it might tie into that.
Yes, and the other thing, which I guess you didn't see my hand raised on the referendum, when you were discussing that, I was gonna say that Mr. Cohen is completely wrong on that one. I'm gonna disagree with him. You cannot put not to exceed $10 million. I mean, no one knows what that number is gonna be, so you can't put cannot exceed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Tom Gavin, 414 Fourth Avenue. I have a question about ordinance 2022-9 being entered. First up, I want to state, since I moved back to town, the service by the DPW is phenomenal. They're polite, they're professional, they do a great job. And when I know you had this issue come up in town about the recycle and timing and everything else, so I think there's a bit of an axe being ground here. But in reading ordinance 2022-9, it seems that the council wants to take over possibly controlling scheduling on some issues such as recycling or trash pickup and something like that. I would first refer to Article 2 of subject 5-10, powers and duties of the mayor. He's the chief executive who supervises all the, or he or she, or they, supervises all departments of the borough government and serves as department head in the absence of such an office or appointment existing. So I think first it would have to go through the mayor's control. And secondarily behind that, if the council took it upon themselves to change the scheduling, as the mayor has to seek the advice and counsel of the council when he wants to change something, I think you would have to include that you would seek the advice and counsel of the DPW supervisor and administrator, because you might not have the ability or the knowledge of everything that's going on at the time that it's causing such change. First thought that came to my mind is, what if we what if there was a storm or hurricane or something, and the DPW supervisor wanted to change a pickup date? Then would have to present to the council, if I read this correctly. And that would require notice, that would require a meeting. He doesn't have it, then you could of course declare an emergency, which I don't know who becomes responsible then. I just think the ordinance has some needs to be reviewed and rewritten perhaps, and it's not encompassing all of the issues involved in this discussion. But thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
We have Zoom now.
Sorry.
Zoom.
Zoom, you got some? Oh, we do have some hand raised, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have Marcy. Marcy, can you please state your name and address? Marcy?
Marcy Letterman, 112 Second Avenue.
Okay, go ahead, Marcy.
I'm just commenting on the additional sewer work. I'm one of those homes that would be affected. And we've had flooding in our basement 3 times in the last year due to sewer backup. And, you know, we had to have people come in and dressed in full gear, and it was all fecal matter and so on and so forth. So these mains are old and you're doing all of this work. And I just, while I understand it's an addition and it, for whatever reason, it didn't make it into the initial scope, I really believe it has to happen now. So I just wanted to let you know that it is a problem and that we would really like for it to be part of the remediation.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next, we have David Teslin, and I apologize if I botched your name. Can you please
Let
state
me
your address
mute.
for me?
Yes, hi, David Seitlin, 108 Second Avenue. I am a landlord of the 44-unit apartment building that the sewer work was done on the rest of the borough, but not our area. Ironically, the staging area was right in front of us, but the sewer pipes for some reason escaped us. And I believe, we as an apartment building, we are, we have more backups and then a regular home. But our neighbors should not suffer because of that either. So it's imperative that the sewer pipes are gonna be replaced in front, for our properties on for 1 and 200 on those blocks.
Okay, and can you just repeat your address for me? I'm sorry.
108 Second Avenue.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And next we have Scott Bieber.
Yes, thank you. Scott Bieber, 200 Second Ave, and I'll just add to the chorus there. Really, I'm glad to see that was on the agenda to complete the work at Second Avenue. Appreciate that it's an additional cost, but surely the cost, if we had to just do it, one off in 5 years or 10 years or who knows how long, would be more. So appreciate seeing on there, and also just thank you, Mayor and council members, for your work.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands.
Are we doing email comments?
No, there weren't any.
Checking for-
Yes, I did.
Okay, we'll move to ordinances number 9. The first ordinance is 2022-8. Ordinance amending Article 2 Special Road Commission in Chapter 24 Commissions of Committees, revised general ordinances to approve the Fletcher Lake Commission's revised charter. So we'll open for council comments on this.
I am the liaison to the Fletcher Lake Commission, and I briefly described this at our last council meeting. Again, just to bring everyone current, the Fletcher Lake Commission has basically been operating under a charter that was over 20 years old, grossly out of line with the way the commission actually operates today. For example, the commission today is a combination of many resident volunteers. I think there are 10 official resident volunteers, and there are a couple of municipal liaison types. Myself from Bradley, a colleague from Neptune, some DGW representation, but it's basically residents. And maybe the fundamental difference with the old charter was almost all government employees as members of the commission. On top of that, the new charter, so we flipped that around to basically identify that it should be all resident volunteers and what their terms should be and so forth, defining member roles. The other significant portion of the charter change tied to what costs for maintaining the lake are shared equally by Neptune and Bradley versus other costs that might be more weighted towards more heavily weighted towards Bradley or Neptune. For example, if it's the retaining wall on the Neptune side, that's Neptune's responsibility. Something like the bridge would be a shared, something like aerators and the like would be a shared cost. So I thought the commission did a great job adding greater clarity to that for all members involved, as well as for the two boroughs. So that's a very high level description of what they've accomplished. I did sit in meetings with them, and it was a very thorough, very exhaustive process. Anthony DeMeas, the chair, he was here earlier when we left, but he did a wonderful job just coordinating everyone. I see Sal Galisetti in the back. Sal was a part of this. I don't know if there are any other commission members here from Fletcher Lake, but I thought they all did a great job. Now we're looking to introduce this to actually begin the process of replacing the 20-year-old charter with this new current charter.
Yeah, my only comment is I echo some of Councilman Posey's said. This was in dire need. I think the team really stepped up, the commission stepped up, and passing of the prior chair, which the, certainly institution, they really took a step back and then said, okay, what do we have to do? I think this was one of the key other things that they have to get done. We're also working on projects, financials. So this bylaw change is well overdue, so it's certainly good. Yes, if not, close council comments and make a motion to introduce 2022.
Mr. Pennell?
Yes.
Mr. Guttezi?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith, absent. Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, we'll now move to introduction on 2022-09, chapter 286, limiting solid waste recycling collection of boroughs revised general ordinance to provide borough council with oversight authority regarding pickup schedules. I'll open for council comments. Council comments.
I got a couple of things. First of all, I do agree with Tom Gavin. I don't think it should say schedules. I think it should say frequency. That's what we're talking about. I don't think that's a major change. The intent here is not to have anything to do with the schedule or the means and methods. The DPW, I had a conversation with Diageo last week, and I said, you guys tell me it's more effective to drive the truck down the street backwards, go for it. But as far as frequency of whether we do it once a week, twice a week, whether we say pick up the whole town in 1 week, whatever the schedule you guys decide you need to do to make that happen, that's all you. This is simply about long-term. It's not about short-term. Yeah. It's not about a storm. If a storm comes in and Diageo says, we can't do the pickup this week because we're cleaning up from the storm, I think everybody will get it. I don't think that's going to be a problem for anything. This is simply about the weekly frequency of call. And I said to Diageo in our conversation that if something comes up, if you guys have a schedule of list of 10 items you want to get done for the town over the course of the next season till Christmas, whatever the duration is, bring it to us. And if it makes sense, then we'll pare it down and go to once every 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. I also said that when we took this over 5 years ago, we didn't hire anybody else really to do the job. And it's not a small job. So maybe the answer is to keep the frequency of once a week. We need a couple more guys with DPW. And the other thing I'm really glad about is that we're putting out an RFP to find out what it would cost to have somebody else do it for us, so we can measure. Maybe that's the answer. As far as the RFP, Kim, I would really like to see separate costs be submitted for each different type. Instead of saying we want to do a contract for recycling, waste, and bulk, let's get a separate price for each one, because right now, this is all stemming from recycling pickup. So maybe that's all we need to outsource is recycling pickup. And then instead of getting 2 days a month, you guys will get 4 days a month with extra hands.
So when I do the bid specs, I usually will break it up into different sections of type of sanitation service that's being offered. I then option it out into a C category. And it is, yeah, I can show you the price.
You're gonna get two
I
different
created
crews.
for other towns as well. Right.
If we bring Delissa back, you're gonna get a crew that does the garbage and a crew that does the recycling. It's already segregated for that. Is it?
Same crew, different days. Neither here nor there, it's different prices that they'll break it out, and then you option it out if you did a once a week, if you did a bi-weekly, if you did something.
For each different, for basically for recycling and garbage. Really, what it boils down to.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And I actually work with the, just so you know, I actually work with the engineer doing a bid spec for sanitation. That is quite complex. You have to take in each residence, you have to go into the condo units, you have to go into the apartment units, multifamily dwellings. You have to estimate how many people live in each dwelling, and so how many cans you accept, the size of the can, the type of can, and stuff.
I agree with Councilman Vanel's observation and thank you also for pointing out that there is, I think, very modest wording change we should incorporate where the word schedule appears. We really should say frequency, because frequency of pickup is a council decision, which we believe a council decision, which includes the mayor as a member of the council. But by no means does anyone supporting this language intend for it to circumvent the mayor's responsibility on a day-to-day basis. It gives us a storm or some other major issue to address. The mayor and be able to work directly with our DPW. This is more about making sure that at a macro level, from a policy standpoint, that if we decide, if we collectively, and it's not just the current council, it's the council in years ahead.
How about if they don't, how about if they have an agenda, the next council that gets in? How about if they have an agenda, then maybe they're not like you guys.
So I guess the idea here is the elected officials, that the people entrust to make decisions that are the best interests of the borough.
Department heads are in trust to make that decision.
Exactly.
Department heads,
Exactly.
we have a very well department head right here, and you're trying to clip.
I got it, Councilman.
So
Thank you.
I think probably the problem that I'm having right now is we decided as a borough to workshop ordinances. This ordinance was prepared and not presented to myself or the department heads to review and sit down and discuss it. It probably would have been more respectful on my end if I could sit with the department heads and explain this in a better manner. I think this even comes from where this originated from, right? Into communication. We have to start communicating better. I think we're missing something here as a whole. I don't even know the procedure and policy, so if there's a storm, it's not the mayor who's gonna make that decision on the schedule. It's the OEM. OEM is in charge of anything that comes into a state of emergency or a storm.
That's correct.
So we have to make sure that we know who's responsible for what and how it's represented, because the ordinance is gonna put in place a different set of policies and procedures for my department heads, myself, and of course I have from Kevin there, and then the OEM department. So there's actually, and I think we have to realize that. I absolutely understand that there was miscommunication, but I think the way we went about this, as you can see, is probably not the best measure to present the ordinance without saying, hey, what are our problems? How could we fix it? What's a better way that we can go about this? Is there an easier way? Is there a different reporting measure? And such. I just want to respectfully say that about this ordinance. I was actually here when you even workshopped this. I was out on a vacation day with my brother. So I was not here, and I don't believe it's the department heads, the assistant supervisor for the DPW, or the sanitation foreman were involved in these decisions or invited to the workshop. And as I respect the fact that the council has decisions to make, we also have our professionals and department heads who have 25, 26 years experience with this position.
So I'm a bit surprised. I haven't chatted with you, but Diageo, I've chatted with you a couple of times about this. So, and I left those conversations believing that we felt this was appropriate to place the burden on the council, not just on the DPW. In fact, I think you said to me, I would do the same thing.
After I've gone over it, Councilman Gutierrez, I respectfully disagree. I've been here for many years, and I know my thought process is for the entire town, not just for the people that come to the meetings, and I respect that they come to the meetings. but I need to be the voice for the people that don't come. And I'm there for them, and I see, and I gather information from my assistant and my foreman, what underlying issues that this took place, or how it took place with the recycling. And I'm here to make sure that it runs smoothly, and I've gathered all my information. And I think I should be made to make that decision with the administrator and the mayor, because at this point, he is the person in charge. And I don't think I need to have to come to a meeting to get approval for a decision that's made. Just the way I feel.
Yeah, thank you. I guess just to finish my comments, setting the frequency of recycling of bulk pickup of trash is, I would think, fairly universally considered a policy decision. I appreciate your position, John. But as a policy decision, as opposed to direction of employees, the mayor 100% has full latitude unless it's OEM in a case of an emergency. But the administration, I'll fold OEM with that, has full power over the direction of employees. I've been back and forth with this with our council, Mr. Cannon. I've talked to expert on ordinary small use telephone government, a professor at Rutgers, Mark Pfeiffer. Universally, it is believed that this is a policy decision to address, to set frequency, only frequency. Anything that interrupts your daily lives, any emergencies that pop up, any changes in, let's pick up Newark on this day instead of that day, that is purely within everyone's jurisdiction. But once a year, same way it's done today, when the mayor decides, and again, I'm not talking about this mayor, I'm talking about future mayors, future council, any decision that today is made by that future mayor, virtually all municipalities believe that's a policy decision. If we double the amount of recycling pickup, that could increase taxes. If we have, and I'm picking a recycling, it could be trash free anything. If we have the number of pickups, it could impact other policy issues such as public health and safety, pollution. Being policy issues, these are things that should be addressed by at least I believe, by the entire council. But it is in no means intended to restrict our DPW.
What is this based on, Councilman, in terms of recycling? This stems from the recycling, correct? The recycling decision that was made to go every other week. I haven't heard of this before that, or.
I think that brought it to light, but it's not a reflection on the decision itself. It just brought to light
It
that.
came from that.
It brought it to light.
The
The council was not aware that the decision was being made. And as I personally looked into it, I realized it really falls under the bucket of policy. And in fact,
So it ends, the every week ends in September. I think 14th, we go back to every other week. So I have to come back and explain to you.
No, just for a video.
Based on the decision
No,
yesterday.
No, if the ordinance changes,
No,
no.
correct.
Right.
I wanted to go back to every other week, but I wanted, so we have to come in here and vote on it, correct?
if we're going to do that, change that frequently, it would become cumbersome. I like to think that our DPW working with the council, including the mayor, including the VA, would come up with something, and we say this period of time, based on your data, and again, it's not just this council, future councils, but based on DPW's data, I'm making this up, January through June, it's X times a week, July through November, it's this time of week, but you set a schedule that the council agrees on. If there are deviations necessary, you handle it on a longer basis, but I think the idea is the council should control policy in the borough.
Is there a failure in the current policy? Because there are many policies within the borough on a day-to-day basis. The court administrator, the judge, and I, that falls under my jurisdiction when I set the court schedule with the court administrator and the judge. So, I mean, how much government do we feel as though we need Can we not improve communication? Do we have to set legislation to create such a communication measure? If I have a department head, an assistant of a department, and a foreman coming here saying, let's communicate, let's not legislate, is that not good enough to the council? And I don't even think it should have got to this level before it came here to the public. And the public might not agree because they want every week, or the public might not agree because they want every 2 weeks. Either way, the more government that we're creating, I just feel as though that's that much more communication that we could go against and not have together.
Well, again, I can't speak for,
I just don't know because we did not workshop this as a whole, so I don't even understand where it came from.
So, Councilman, do you have any comments?
Sure, thanks. Councilman Vanel and myself were the only ones on council when we changed the garbage pickup to doing it in-house, doing it in town, which by the way is not privatization, it's public, we're having our public servants do it. And we, you know, when we vote on that ordinance, there was everything, we voted on every single detail. It was the size of the can. It was the time that it goes out. It was the time that you gotta bring the cans back in. It was what holidays are covered. I mean, we've since then, we voted on the number of cans that a non-residential property can put out. So I think the frequency, and I would like to hear from Greg, if frequency, if we can get rid of the word schedule and put the word frequency, and that's not a big change, right? Because I agree with that.
I mean, the word schedule appears all over the ordinance, so I'm not sure how at this moment I just change it to frequency to make everyone feel
Because
better.
I think the intent here
But
is frequency.
it's not the terror, if we did it, it would just be in the.
I'll read it. Schedule for residential pickup, that's one. The schedule for residential solid waste pickup.
3 times.
Okay, so you just want to change that to frequency?
Frequency for residential pickup, period.
So how would you handle the last sentence? This public schedules for
Publish-
residential solid waste pickup.
Publish frequency for residential solid waste pickup.
I just want me to literally just change the word.
Councilman, are you finished?
Yeah, no, I'm not even close to being finished. So I thought it was a simple question. So I think the intent here is frequency. Schedule implies you're doing garbage on Monday and you're doing recycling on, you know, that's not our deal. That's not, you know, but frequency to say it's once a week or twice a week or whatever. So to answer your question, Mr. Cannon, that the published schedules, in that case, I mean, maybe that would be frequency as well. So I just feel like the intention is frequency. But my point is, we voted on every single detail when we did this. We went to having the town do this. We voted on other details that I think at your request, the number of cans that non-residential folks can put out. So I think this is a change, and I hear what you're saying, Kim, about communication, but I mean, the reality is 4,000 people had the recycling services cut in half, and there wasn't any discussion, and the council didn't know it was coming. So I agree, communication would have been great, but there wasn't. So I think it's fine to have this, at least the frequency, in the hands of the council. All of their details can be handled by the administration, department heads. So I think this is an appropriate change. And I don't think it's going to be, you know, world's not going to end because we just make sure that the council has a say over it. Change the frequency. So.
Okay. And we lost the contract, by the way, for the sanitation, if you remember, Council. We were thrust into the garbage business.
30%.
It wasn't voted on. It was thrust upon us. And we did. And we did.
No, I know.
And we did. We did a great job.
I know.
My guys do a
you guys
great
said
job.
that you could
Just
do
so
it.
you know.
You had a very.
Just so you remember.
We could have taken the contract with Delissa that was 30% more. We could have
You
done
could
that.
have.
But you guys.
You didn't.
I know, but you said
You
you
didn't.
do it, you did it, and I agree. you did a
Right,
great
I know
job.
stat says you guys gotta do it.
Yeah.
On Christmas night.
I understand. Hey,
That's what we were told. We're starting in 3 days. Let's not forget what we all did.
And like I said.
Ruin
on all sorts of
Christmas.
Details. I think frequency is in the realm of the council.
Okay, I'm gonna make a few comments. First, I don't think this is in the spirit, and people can disagree with me. It's not in the spirit of our form of government, and we spent a lot of time on this. And when I look at the list of things that we have to focus on to improve our community, I'm not sure this really ranks really high. I just don't think it's good government. As DA Humphrey said, and I agree, I don't think the appropriate reviews were done with OEM, with Public Works guys with VA. So, you know, with past ordinances, we've addressed things, and frankly, we've created a lot of mess in our ordinances by just tweaking and morphing our ordinances. Last week, I requested that we did not put this on the agenda, and that the Public Works group had the opportunity to basically present where they were and how they felt about this in a formal manner with the presentation. These councilmen basically said no thanks, which I thought was very inappropriate. So I had to review with the Public Works group over the last few days. Went through the pros, the cons, the ups and downs of this. One of the things that happened was that we did in fact free up capacity. We rebuilt offices, we rebuilt lockers, we rebuilt lifeguard stands. We trained people in maintenance with freed up resources between March and June. So we did a hell of a lot in a short period of time. Our volume is actually down marginally, both on the trash side and the recycling side. I attribute that probably to getting back to a little bit more normalcy as it relates to COVID. Probably less people in town. So we have the capability to stay the way we are, but the issue that we had that we didn't have a good solve for was feedback that we got from 3 entities, and that was apartment managers who were having trouble with their capacity, multi-family dwellings, like 6 homes or more, or 6 families or more in a dwelling, and senior citizens. We heard from a number of senior citizens about weight movement and moving stuff around. So we didn't have a good solve for that. So the decision we made yesterday was, let's go back to weekly, because if we can't solve these problems relative to apartments, multifamily dwellings, and seniors, it's not going to necessarily will hurt us from a capacity standpoint, and projects will not get done if we free up capacity to do it. But you know, that's kind of the way. It is what it is. So I don't believe that we need to be spending time on this. I don't believe it's the appropriate thing to do. And, you know, that's my opinion, and I'll stick with that opinion. With that, I want to make a motion to table 2022-09. Is there a second? There is not. Okay.
So I will then make a motion to introduce ordinance 2022.
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Bertozzi?
Yes.
Mr. Sexton, absent. Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
No, for all the reasons that I just stated. It's unfortunate that we moved this direction. Okay, let's move to the next thing. Communications, the police department full-time dispatcher employee memo. Under resolutions, on the consent agenda, we have 2022-194, the bill list for July 26, 2022-95, authorizing the Ocean Grove Historic Preservation Site to conduct a 5K race outside Saturday, September 17th, 2022-196, authorizing Coastal Women's Association to conduct their silent disco in August and October on the 5th Avenue Beach. And 2022-197, authorizing refund the amount of $45 for zoning permit fee for 400 Palm Avenue. 2022-198, authorizing a lien redemption in the amount of $2,155.59 for 506 Park Place. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Bertozzi?
Yes.
Mr. Sexton is absent. Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Going to the individual resolutions, 2022-199, authorizing a change order and supplemental agreement, number 1 for the sanitary sewer rehab project, phase 2, increasing the project amount by $127,104.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith absent, Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Second here. 2022, sorry, 200, I amended for resolution 2022-192 awarding contract for interim repairs for temporary heat to 319 Marina.
Mr. Bennell?
No.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith absent, Mr. Weber?
Mr. Weber, not voting on this.
Sorry, Mayor Fox?
Did not vote on this last time. This is the. Somebody voted last.
Yeah. And I checked with the legal folks and they advised that you should.
So we'll just so everybody knows, we voted on this last time. I asked our legal counsel and they said this is like routine maintenance on a borough-owned property. So you don't want me to vote? I don't know. I don't think you should vote on it. Okay, great, thanks. So I will abstain.
Mayor Fox?
Yeah. Yes. (2022-201) authorizing the borough administrator to give advertisements for sanitation, recycling, and bulk pickup services for the borough refuge. Make a motion to. Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith absent, Mr. Weber?
Can I ask a question about this? Was this discussed with the department heads? Just last, was this discussed with the?
She said no.
Sorry?
She said no, it wasn't.
She said this wasn't discussed.
Communication, remember? Communicate, that was all part of the speech.
Is that?
No. This was discussed with that department, yes.
Okay, this is different, Pat. This is the
This is something different.
advertising bids for sanitation.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to, because we we're talking about that stuff, that's why, okay. I'm gonna vote yes, and just thank you for answering that question. Thank you, yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-202, resolution authorizing settlement of matter pending before New Jersey Government Records Council entitled OWAH/AADARI versus Borough of Valley Beach, URC 208. Motion approved. Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith absent, Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-203, a resolution authorizing settlement of pending litigation before Superior Court of New Jersey, Monmouth County versus Borough of Valley Beach, docket MON-L-152-22. Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Bennell? Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith absent, Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-204, resolution authorizing the placement of non-binding referendum question on November 8, 2022 general election to consider whether the borough should renovate public property and vacant structure located at 319 Block 31, Lot 1, in order to create this community center. Motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith absent, Mr. Weber?
Yes. I mean, I'm abstaining, I'm sorry. I don't- It's like a knee jerk. I'm sitting there telling myself I'm gonna abstain. I abstain now, sorry.
It's okay. Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, that's, there are no announcements, so mayor and council reports, start with, Councilor Chanel.
Okay, first aid and fire report. First aid squad for the operational. Let's try this one more time. For the operational period ending July 26, 2022, the squad responded to 23 day calls, 7 night calls for a total of 30. 22 were for medical, 6 were fire. The squad provided medical coverage for the beach,
with 80-55 of each response unit on the weekend and due to the excessive heat. We man the unit daily for safety of our citizens and our guests. The squad conducted an in-house drill for the safety and education of the members on safety and equipment placement. The squad required no mutual aid during the operational period. They fulfilled 100% of their assignments. The fire department, for the same operational period, responded to 6 requests for the department. Congratulates the following members for their accomplishment of completing the first summer day class at the Monmouth County Fire Academy. Firefighter Kyle Hagerman, firefighter Eric Cortez, both completed the training courses for firefighter 1 and 2, obtained their pro board certification and New Jersey State firefighter certification, and both are now responding to calls with the department. The department required no mutual aid during the operational period, and fulfilled 100% of their assignments. And as usual, they're always looking for more volunteers. You can go down there, you can go to the website. There's all kinds of ways to get involved, so please do. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to step back there for a minute. Councilman Tosis.
I am the liaison for Fletcher Lake, and as many may recall, over the past month or 6 weeks, there was a concern that 14 memorial benches have been removed. But I'm very happy to announce that a couple of representatives from the Fletcher Lake Commission were able, in fact, to meet with the mayor and our BA, and the chair of the Fletcher Lake Commission told me it was a very productive meeting and that he felt a lot was accomplished, that our administration is making a very strong effort to now coordinate with them in replacing the benches. And in fact, our DPW has taken another project under their wings to actually build benches that will be used as replacement benches. So Mr. DeMayo was very excited about this great spirit of collaboration, and although he didn't have the exact time frame, my understanding is he thinks the benches, they take time obviously to make, but he thinks the benches may be replaced within the next 4 to 6 months. That was a sense I got from my conversation with him. I'm also the liaison with the Sylvan Lake Commission. I actually see a couple of Sylvan Lake Commission members in the audience. So I will try to represent you folks well with these comments, but the Sylvan Lake Commission is still hopeful that they'll be able to work with the mayor and our BA to strengthen the communications regarding the commission and activities related to Sylvan Lake. The 3 items of note are East End Park, landscaping and trees. There apparently are some questions that they again would like to talk to our the mayor and the BA. Also, the sidewalk, proposed sidewalk and grant application with the engineer planning that was presented a few meetings ago. They'd like to come up to speed on that and make sure they're involved. And they've also raised concerns, I believe, already with the BA and the mayor, that they're anxious to resolve safety concerns related to the winter fencing. So those are 3 outstanding issues. And again, I think the hope there is they just strengthen communications with our administration. Mr. Mayor, the one other comment I had is it's not regarding anything I'm personally involved with, but we, the council, did receive an email from Julia Rand about a need to expand budget in order for performance to be completed in later this year. Is that something you were going to address?
I was not, because it happened this afternoon and it needs to be addressed, but it's premature after that conversation. Figure out exactly what's what with that. It just came up this afternoon.
Okay, I'll mention for the public's benefit that Ms. Rand, who's in charge of our Arts Council and our performances, arts performances throughout the year, has run out of budget, and she just today did request the council to consider adding $5,000 to the Art Council's budget. I won't make any motions at this point. I just want to make sure that the mayor was aware of it, and if there's any consideration.
I'm well aware.
That concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I hope everybody knows that we are under some water restrictions. The water, people should have got the call from the water company. They're asking people to abide by an odd, even watering schedule for outdoor. Obviously, you can use water indoors every single day of the week, which is good. But outdoors, they want to be odd, even based on your address. So please abide by that. And at least what the water company says, if people abide by that, we may not have to go any more strict. I'd like to congratulate the firefighters in training that completed that training, Kyle and Eric. At least Kyle, I knew he was just a young kid running back and forth from my house. So it's great to see that. It's been a tough week in terms of weather, a week plus, I'd say. Trees obviously make a huge difference. I don't know about you, but I just see such a huge difference when you're in weather like this and you're in the shade of a tree, as opposed to when you are not. I know the Shade Tree Commission is diligently working to make sure that people that got new trees this spring are keeping those bags watered. That's really important. It's, you know, they have a recommendation of like once a week, but in weather like this, it's got to be more than that. So they're trying to reach out to those homeowners. The grass in your planting strip is probably toast, probably like well done toast. It's maybe a little less well done toast if you have a tree. And maybe you can get some water on that. So again, the shade from the tree is just probably making a difference for you know, for your grass as well, and giving us shade. A few meetings ago, related to this, I mentioned that there's a new state law in the beginning of 2021 that said that towns need to do a climate vulnerability assessment as part of their, as an element of their master plan. I'd just like to ask, are we doing that? People on the land use board, is that in progress? Has that been discussed at all?
It has not.
Okay, well, I'm going to put in a good word for doing that climate vulnerability assessment. Not only because the state's requiring it when we look at our master plan, but with this weather that we're having, I think we should, all the towns should be doing that. With respect to climate, not just really weather, I would like everyone to consider the possibility that this may be the coolest summer that you ever experienced for the rest of your life. Coolest summer for the rest of your life, meaning we might be looking back someday and saying like, oh, remember that summer 2022, that one wasn't so bad. Okay, so we just have to think that that could be the world that we're entering. It's not likely to be that way because weather's not linear. Things go up and down, but it is possible, so people should think about that. And because it's been hot, I've been riding my bike a lot, and when the weather's like this, our town is packed. Every single parking spot is occupied, and there's cars on the road because people are trying to get here and there. So I'm always feeling nervous about somebody just opening their car door when I'm riding by my bicycle and just, you know, taking me out. So I would like to suggest, for everyone's benefit, that people get accustomed to the idea of the Dutch reach. Does anybody know what the Dutch reach is? Nobody knows. This is awesome, so I get to tell everybody. The Dutch reach, there are more bicycles than people in Netherlands. People know that, right? Okay. Lots of bikes there. And the Dutch reach is when you're getting out of your car, instead of just flinging it open with your left arm and potentially taking out a cyclist because you don't know that they're coming up behind you after you park your car. The Dutch reach is using your right hand and going like this to open your car door, and that makes you look back that way, and that way if a cyclist is coming, you can see whether or not it's somebody you like and decide if you're going to take them out. So the Dutch reach keeps us all safe. You know, when people are riding bikes and the town is packed, and it's going to remain that way. So maybe prevent some bike accidents. So people get used to the Dutch reach. One last thing, kind of environmental, although I just let the Environmental Commission know about this. There's some folks that are doing a zero waste day over at the Bradley Brew Project on August 20th. They're calling it Seize the Day. See what they did there? Seize the Day. And local businesses that are involved in generating less waste. There's going to be workshops on this kind of stuff. They're going to kick the day off with a beach cleanup. The Brew Project is involved. So I will leave this for anybody that wants it. I can happily send it to everybody and make sure the town has it. We can get this on a website. So Seize the Day, August 20th. That's the end of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I've got a couple points here. First, as we've all experienced, the weather has been almost over cooperating for us as a beach town. We're about to finish July. We're doing very well. We're fairly close to our revenue projections right now. I think that trend hopefully will continue. The weather's been great and the beachfront's been managed very well by all the people involved in that, the lifeguards, the gate attendants, public works, EMS, and certainly police have done a great job. On Friday and Saturday this past weekend, we had the annual Shakespeare Festival. We had a few real kind of curveballs thrown at us. One, Julia Rand, our chair, was a little bit under the weather. She had to leave from afar, which she did. The weather didn't really cooperate too much in the context of temperature. It was about 95 degrees on the promenade, so we shifted over to the firehouse. It was very necessary. Jackie Schneider, who's the second in command on the Arts Council, worked diligently. We had 5 excellent new players, and the technical folks, Dan, Nate, really did a great job. On that line of arts, for those who don't know it, the Cinema Labs, which used to be the Beach Cinema, has reopened kind of as a pop-up between now and I think the first week of September. We're welcoming them back and welcoming the theater back. I know that they're advertising, but I just wanted to make note of that and recognize that that was kind of a long haul from I think October of 2020. 2019 till now to get to where we were, 2020, I'm sorry. I want to remind everybody that next Tuesday, August 2nd, from 6 to 8 is the National Night Out. I'm hoping that we have the same turnout or better than we had last year. Last year was kind of a coming out of COVID event, excuse me. And we just had a great evening, great weather, and it was really well run. Sergeant Joseph Solaro is leading the effort with Chief Guida's team. So it's designed to really heighten crime and drug prevention awareness, generate support for local anti-crime programs, and strengthen the bond between our police community and the community. So I really encourage people to come out. It's down on the promenade, right around Fifth Avenue. It starts, and it'll be pretty significant. There's food, drinks, games, contests, you name it, they have it. So please join, donate, participate. It was a great event, and we want to continue that sense of community. Excuse me, again. On the Lorraine Avenue Church, we spoke a lot about it already today, but we are coming to the end of the 2-week survey. We've had great response thus far from people, and we appreciate that. I mentioned a few ancillary statistics, but the real report will come out hopefully by the end of next week. But as soon as I find that out, I can communicate that on the website or a newsletter update. It's exciting that we're continuing to make progress on this project. I do want to make a comment, though, and I'd be remiss if I didn't comment on this, in my opinion. I would say I was kind of saddened by a couple of ads that were run in the newspapers by the Friends of Bradley Beach. And, on the one side, they asked people to participate in the survey, which was great. But on the other side, they used terms like the survey was overstated, and the financials were overstated and misleading, and just used words that really cast an aspersion on the process, which everybody has the right to say just about anything they want to say, but people who have the right to say something and the right thing to say are two different things. And I was very disappointed by those comments. On to the library, a couple things towards the end of July. Gazebo, story time, Fifth Avenue. Check their website for that. And again, iPads are available, and they have a Wi-Fi hotspot at the library. And that is my report, and we'll now move to public comments. By the way, yes.
Deborah Brunel, 401 Fifth Avenue, Brighton Beach. First of all, I want to thank you. Your guys do a wonderful job. You do a wonderful job. This town has never looked better. I think it's a very sad day for Brighton Beach when people sit here in suits and ties and disparage these men publicly about their job, what they do, what they're capable of doing, what decisions they can make. I see how hot those trash trucks are, the kind of work that those guys are doing in this horrible heat, in the snow and ice, and it breaks my heart. It truly does. I think that we're trying to have too many chiefs that think they have a lot of knowledge. We hire these guys as experts. I think they should be allowed to do their job and make those kinds of decisions. I don't think it needs to be spread out amongst the council in town. I also, something mentioned, I think Mr. Weber, you said you were here when we switched to this. How much money did we save the town when we bought trash trucks and started picking up our own trash, recycling, etc.? Is there a dollar number?
I don't know the answer to that.
We started with a truck that Alan was gonna junk.
And what was Delicious bid? It was over $1 million. If I could be totally mistaken, but I think it was in excess of what their rates suddenly went out of control.
40%.
Right, which is why we suddenly decided to do it in-house. So why all of a sudden are we suddenly soliciting other people to come back in and do it? I don't get it. I also think that changing the wording of this on the fly and thinking that's okay for the public is terrible. I don't understand how it wouldn't have to go back for review before it could be presented again in a public situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Ann Politi, 512 Bradley Boulevard. Thank you, Mayor Fox, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Bradley Beach members of the Sylvan Lake Commission, of which I am the chair. The commission had the ability to rewrite our agreement of charter under the unwavering help of Councilman Lukatosi. The charter defines our relationship with the governing body of Bradley Beach. Said agreement was submitted, agreed to, and signed by all necessary parties. The Sylvan Lake Commission purpose is to be an advisory committee to the town. As such, we firmly believe that improved communication is a necessity to positive forward progress. To illustrate what we consider to be a lack of two ways of communication, I would like to point out the following. It has come to our attention via a town meeting on June 28th that the town has applied for a grant for a walking path from Ocean Avenue to Main Street. This was done, and the commission had no prior knowledge of this process occurring. We share responsibility with the town of Avon, and we have found that are much better informed by Avon when they apply for any kind of grant or need-based decision. They always ask us at our meetings to participate. Under the mayor, Julie Schreck, many years ago, a grant was acquired to construct a stacked stone wall the length of the lake. Unfortunately, this project ran out of grant funds before it was completed. We have expressed our immediate concern about the danger of the remainder of the bulkhead deterioration. The result of our concern was fence installation, but unfortunately, said fence does not cover the entire dangerous area and is now in a state of disrepair. We continue to inquire as to any possible remediation, but as yet have not received any information as to possible or desired solutions, including feedback concerning such endeavors. Under the former business administrator, a grant was acquired to create a park on Ocean Avenue at the end of Sylvan Lake. Again, funds were exhausted before the park could be completed. If such money has been requested, we are anxious to facilitate the completion of that park. I have in my possession for well over a year and a half blueprints that have been written and signed by Avakian, the town engineering firm, and a landscape architect. These blueprints show the completion of the park in its finished state, and I'd be glad to hand these blueprints over to whoever I can to try and get this project done. The reason I gave you those two examples is because Bradley Beach has two large projects never completed. Why would we then start another overly ambitious walking path project while two very important projects remain unaddressed and continue to deteriorate, putting people in town, visitors included, at jeopardy? The commission feels we should be included in discussions regarding these types of issues. We are not. There is a possibility of a huge lake dredging project looming over us. And if we don't learn or aren't allowed to communicate with each other, this project could be a mess. We want it to be a success. Through discussions with and between the commission and town officials, we believe that working together better results to issues can be had. Communication is the key to that happening, and I thank you for letting us put that out in front of the council.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and by the way, the other thing, a method of communication that we have right now is I get papers that's to do work orders.
Yes.
And I'd like you to know that I've done 2 of them, both on the same day back in May, and the work still has not been done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Gavin, 414 Fourth Avenue. First of all, it was brutally hot this weekend. It was unbearable. I was actually walking on the beach and reading about people getting second-degree burns from something that was published by First Aid, one of the First Aid members. And on the beach, I encountered twice in passing, in full gear, police officers. I mean, and specialists, and they were out there doing exactly what we wanted to do, discussing, beverage consumption on the beach, smoking, towel placements, etc., in a polite, courteous, and professional manner, and they were dying. I can't say enough for what those guys did this weekend and other days. I was really impressed. To the council, I'm very disappointed that 2022-09 passed. I think graciously you were given an opportunity by both legal counsel and by an admission that wasn't scheduling, it was frequency, to take the matter until you've had a chance to correct the verbiage in it. I know it's a simple thing, go into a document, change the word, but this graciously gave you an opportunity to step back and listen to a full and open communication with both the VA, the DPW supervisor, DPW foreman, staff, etc., who truly know their responsibilities. I don't doubt that this recycle issue has become a hot potato in town. I hear it, just people walking by my house. But I think you missed a great opportunity to sit and talk to the people who report to you through their different administrators. And I'm disappointed that that happened. I'm sorry. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll just mention to one of your points, the OEM group worked weekend too, put a cooling station down at the beach to try to deal with some overheating and issues. I think I was there, runner kind of, God knows whether it was running in the middle of the day. Passed out or went down for the count, and they took care of that person. So a lot of kudos because it was a tough weekend.
First aid too, guys.
Oh, absolutely. EMS, OEM. Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments? Yes.
Thomas J. Colan, 612 Third Avenue. I do want to thank the mayor and council for the owl because it's a wonderful interaction tonight, especially with regards to the $127,000 that is being spent on the sewer. Because I think we didn't communicate well enough in this, because when the gentleman who owns the property on Second Avenue mentioned that he has 44 units, and I mean, we need to quantify how many units are affected by this 127, because it's only about $2,500 a unit if it's 60 units. So, you know, it would have been nice. I thought when the presentation was made that it was 1 unit. So it would be nice to have that data, and it would be easier for the public to understand it. And I totally agree with it. It was great to have the interaction from the public on that. In terms of 2022-09, I want to thank the council for actually fixing something that was experienced by all the residents. I mean, the fact that we had to call our councilman and say, hey, when did you guys change the recycling? The council didn't know anything about it. Okay, so in spirit of good government is working together. And the council should have been included in that. And this administration created the mess by not communicating with the council or the public in advance of that. And they've just done the same thing by now giving us back what was taken away. And I gotta hear it on, I go to every meeting and I gotta watch it on a video instead. It's time for the public to be interactive in this process, and the council also. So I admire you all for really passing 2022-09. I look forward to that continuing. But thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I do actually have one issue about your comment about the ad. You know, you cast aspersions on people in the Coaster newspaper 2 weeks ago, people that come to the meetings to interact. And then for you to say that the words were harsh in some way is totally inappropriate. Thanks for the eye contact. Have a great night.
Thank you. Next, yes.
Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park condominiums. I am repeating this. Your ordinance claims there need to be 2 meetings every month. Look at the calendar for August, November, and December. There was only 1 meeting scheduled. You're violating your own ordinance. And if you think that there's not enough business to go for 2 meetings, stop drinking the Kool-Aid. I wish the BA were still here regarding sanitation gate. When I started coming here, prior to, and thank you for correcting me, bringing the services in-house, any dwelling that was more than 6 units paid for their own sanitation needs. So that also needs to be incorporated in whatever, however you go. Because quite honestly, I'm tired of paying for services I don't utilize and or get. And the only one I really utilize is sanitation, because I don't have kids in school, I don't deal with law enforcement, and I don't know kind of what else gets my tax out of the library, I don't go there either. I'm glad everyone had a really great experience with OEM during the sea wave. I'd like to point out that in 6 days, maybe 5 if we're here later, it will be August. It will be 2 years since I brought up the issue of emergency shelters. And in 2 years, I learned that we have 4, and I learned the location of 1, and I have no idea what to bring with me. But more importantly, there we were in heat emergencies, and there was nothing on the website and nothing about cooling shelters. Gee, and I can't wonder why, when I click on OEM on the website, it only lists law relating people. That department needs to have a representative from every single department in this town. To think that law enforcement knows what it entails to grab everything off the beach and secure things down is ridiculous. These other departments bring expertise which keep us safe. regarding things that were inaccurate supposedly in the paper, I would suggest don't throw stones, because I can make a list, Mr. Mayor, and I mentioned some of it tonight, of inaccuracies, and I'm using that word very kindly, that have been presented from you. And what I'm also curious about, because we know our priorities are different, and I do find sanitation, quite honestly, to be a serious priority. There's, from a publication from Meridian Hackensack, but apparently our rec center is hosting a seminar. Maybe I didn't pick up on it in a meeting. I can't imagine that it wasn't approved. But again, now they are a for-profit organization. This is not one of our little charity things that we're supporting indirectly. Who's paying for the sanitation department that's gonna clean up the mess that's there? Who's paying for security? I would think that this is something that needs to be policy. Oh, as we've discussed this evening, and don't answer questions. It would be really nice if maybe at the next meeting, you could address concerns that people have asked from this meeting. Because quite honestly, every time you sit there and say nothing and or give inaccurate information, we kind of know why. The public is not stupid.
I've reached Estens at 73rd Avenue. We're getting new sewers on Second Avenue. We had a construction crew there now for about a week. And I was looking forward to them not being there much longer. Saturday was having almost 50 people, and sure like they have a lot of parking places around. So looking forward to that, and then I found that being we're on a corner, Hammond Avenue and 3rd Avenue. They just started on Hammond Avenue. So I think that's the first street that they're doing other than the avenues. But good stuff I've seen going on. They're so fast in what they do. I love watching the workers. They have a handful of workers and several really great tools that they use, machinery. And it's amazing. I look at them working, it looks like a ballet going on. So this is a really sharp organization. Nice people to deal with too. On the garbage issue and recycling issue. Everyone has a very high regard for public works. I never heard of anything other than that. And gentleman here heading it up knows that from me, because I told him the same thing I hear often. One thing that I've learned and being involved in the towns that I've lived in, don't mess with people's garbage. That's a big, big no-no. The action tonight in approving that the council's involvement in these kinds of decisions was necessary because of what happened when the change was made. If there was a communication that went on, what action was taken tonight and the vote would never have arisen. So I support your vote on that. With regards to the survey, that 93%, is that the number, Mr. Mayor? 93% on the survey that people understood the financials. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I said that I did also. I understood what information was in front of me, but I also noticed that the other numbers that were given in other meetings, when they talked about what it's going to cost in a 30-year period, coming in around $20 a month, I took note of that myself, but I'm saying, but I do understand what I'm reading, but I don't understand why that number that has been presented here before was so different. I just wanted to bring that out. That might have something to do with that 93% being the same way that I was. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Brigitte McGuire, 610 Brindley Ave. We were on Zoom staring at the wall for the first hour and then walked over when we couldn't see who was speaking in the room. Can anyone make a statement to why the owl is not working?
It is working.
It's not working. The people, we see nobody. We see that screen. We see the
I
wall.
can't, okay, maybe it has to be adjusted, but that it is working, it is showing something.
Normally it has several screens and it goes to whoever's on the mic.
I'll have to look into that. I honestly, Brigitte, I don't know.
Okay, well, that's all I was asking. Secondly, I'd like to request something my aunt gave me, who bikes our town very frequently. She asked me to request for road signs, which include the car and bike symbols side by side that say share the road. Since we can't have bike lanes, I agree this is a great suggestion. Regarding the policy vote here tonight, the lack of communication is what the major problem was regarding recycling. It was done and we couldn't even get an explanation. So my answer to the VA's question regarding how much more government do we need, it's not how much, it's that we need fair government, not a dictatorship. We need a democracy. We, the public, have the right to input for policy, and that is via the entire council. I ask you to understand the perspective of the residents when you fight so hard for that power without our council. We stand here and feel like, why are we left in the dark? And I don't feel this is about any complaint against DPW. They are absolutely wonderful. I brag about DPW regularly to my relatives who frequently visit. They're always noticing something beautiful, something to compliment in the town, and I always brag about it. I also want to add, and I imagine I speak for everyone, that we are always especially grateful for OEM. I mean, how can't you be during an emergency? For me, this issue was about lack of policymaking for the town. I am always for less government. However, the recycling issue was done because of poor town management and government, and we needed it corrected. Even though we didn't follow through with data collection, etc., I'm much happier to have just thrown that out and bring back recycling to once a week full time. So thank you, Mayor, for that. Thank you also to the council for voting this through tonight. The people now are included in policies for our town and it's refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Dr. Tom McGuire, 610 Brindley Avenue. If I can make a suggestion about the owl, if I don't know who's in charge of it, but it was frustrating being at home. No, we just got it and it's brand new and it's doing nothing. The camera is from there right now, not from here. So just so you know, just spent a lot of money on it, we're not even using it. Next is about the referendum. I just found out that it's non-binding. I thought the referendum that we were doing is going to affect, meaning like we get a say in it. So we really don't have a say on it, correct?
I think yes.
Anyone? We do?
I think yes.
But it's non-binding, so it actually, when we vote on it, you guys still make the vote, correct? So why do we just not do the referendum? We have a survey that just went out to a lot of people and almost everyone responded. I know they aren't all residents, but you should be able to get the gist from just that. Why do we have to wait? Because we're going to spend, I think, what was it, $250,000 to fix it, to get it up to code or get it to operate, and we can vacate that or bypass that, and we can just, you'll have the information. Why do we have to have a referendum when you're going to vote on it anyway?
Honestly, because we've been talking about having a referendum for a year, and this survey talks about.
But I think what we thought when you said referendum, like I'm sure people behind me might think the same thing. I thought I was voting on it. I thought I was going to get a yes or a no, and that was it.
You were going to vote on it, and I too thought it would be binding until Mr. Cannon explained to me.
So you
what he just said.
I think, Tom, Dr. this council, whether it's this council or whether it's next year's council, will be very influenced by the referendum.
Yeah.
So I think all residents will have a say by casting their vote. We've been promising the public a referendum for probably close to a year.
Yeah, I've been wanting it, but I've been asked the last meeting to speed it up so we can get it, but I just still don't understand why. Can it not be binding? Is it illegal to make it binding? I know he said something like that. I know there's only certain circumstances it can be. This can't be at all binding?
No.
No. All right. Why don't we get that information beforehand?
I prepared a resolution like a year ago, it said not by.
You did?
Yeah. I'm not really sure.
July 27.
So we've always known it's been non-binding?
Yes.
I for sure had it.
You were not aware either?
That's
Until I saw.
I know, you know, he prepared it, but I'm saying, I mentioned, I'm just saying from a public standpoint, that if someone would came and said, hey, so I let everyone know, we're doing a referendum, it is non-binding, we have the last vote. I think people would have just said, screw the referendum, I mean, I know we get a voice, but it's really not a voice. So, yes, we're not gonna do it. And, yeah, that was it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's
Yes,
one hand
sir.
up. I thought there wasn't, there is one.
We have Paula Gentempo. Hi, Paula.
Snuck in that hand.
Paula? Are you there?
And there's-
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I forgot to unmute, forgive me. Just a few comments. Number one, survey was skewed against those who support the restoration. Number two, fully supportive of the referendum. Number three, absolutely in favor of adding to the cultural history of Bradley Beach by a progressive restoration of the church complex. That's it.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Very concise. Okay, there are no more hands, so I will make a motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
It's over. Okay.